Make sure we start on time. Want to welcome everyone back to a new school year. We're really excited and about all the opportunities that's going to happen for our students and our staff and our community. So we're going to go ahead and start with the opening. Let's call the call to order. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. If Dr. Marsden, could you do that, please? Thank you.
Be my pleasure. Please stand and join me in the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We heard an echo. Okay, next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Okay, do you have any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 1.4 inspirational message by Mr. Michael Gallo.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to ask the guys to put up a quote. This is actually my favorite quote. It's by Teddy Roosevelt, and I kind of entitled it "Dare to be Great." But if you pay attention to the words, this is both biting but also challenging when you think about it. And you can kind of think of what type of person you are by, what's being characterized through here. And I think, as we open up a new year, I would challenge you to, dare to step out there for our students. Don't be afraid of what others are telling you. Don't let them tell them you can't. Figure out a way to do it, and if it's for the right thing, we'll be championing you and helping you along the way. So I'm just going to read this. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And that's Teddy Roosevelt, 1910. So I just challenge you to, take these words of perseverance. And, it's hard to be out there doing stuff. And I'm telling you, you'll have critics saying you can't, you shouldn't, you won't, and don't believe them, because you can if you want. So that's my inspirational reading for the day.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Gallo, for sharing that. We're going to go ahead and move to closed session. This is where we will be back there for, which is described there. I'm trying to move through my notes here. And there's no public comments? Okay. All right, we will be coming back. Yes, I do. I just need one. Oh, that's a beautiful picture. Onboarding, what's it, what do you mean by onboarding?
Principals or leaders, as far as their onboarding, if you recall, they attend a board meeting,
Okay,
and then when they're onboarded, they visit different departments and sites within the district.
okay. Go ahead. Oh, thank you. We're back, and we do have a quorum, so I'm going to go ahead and read what came out of closed session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the appointment of the following employee: Ramirez Aldo, Director of Continuous Improvement Educational Services, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined, funding 031.
Congratulations.
I want to read all three. Congratulations. Should I read all three, and then we can approve at the end? And then Momberger. Yes, so Momberger Douglas Middle School Vice Principal, Richardson Prep High Middle School. Effective date, work year, and salary to be determined, funding 035. And Slaughter Danita, Elementary School Vice Principal, Hunt Elementary School. Effective date, work year, and salary to be determined, funding 035. Can I have a motion? Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried, and congratulations.
And yeah, congratulations. And I know we have Mr. Ramirez here, and are any of other folks here that were mentioned this evening? Okay, not yet. Well, we also have a couple folks with us that are on boarders tonight. James Soward, who is the middle school vice principal at Shannon Hills. Is James in the audience? No? Okay, thought he might be. No? And then Jenny Page, middle school principal. Congratulations. Richardson Prep. You can see her in the back here, so congratulations and welcome this evening.
That's it? Okay. Okay, great. So now we're moving to 3.0, action reported. Well, that's the one I just did right now. So 4.0, public hearing. 4.1, initial contract proposal, reopener from the California School Employees Association, and it's chapter 183.
No public comments on that, on the public hearing.
Okay.
Don't we? Here?
Do I go ahead and read it?
Yeah, right. But there's a be it resolved.
We do vote,
We do
okay.
here.
So,
So-
okay, so I don't have that one. Oh, that's fine. Okay, yes, Dr. Flores.
I really, I love this because at the end it says tuition reimbursement committee, and that's board where we're reimbursing our classified employees on their quest to becoming teachers. And so I think this is really, I think we're novel in the whole state. And as we grow our own, I think that, and that's what we got the Golden Apple Award for. I think a lot more districts are going to be doing this and will be the model for other districts. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of our classified because they have committees and are doing it, the right way.
All right, thank you. So then, be it resolved that the Board of Education receive the initial contract proposal, reopener from the California School Employees Association and its Chapter 183, CSEA. Can I have a motion? Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 4.2, initial contract proposal, successor from the San Bernardino School Police Officers Association. Dr. Marsden?
No public comments.
Okay. Any board discussion? Okay, let's just be resolved that the Board of Education receives the initial contract proposal successor from the San Bernardino School Police Officers Association. Can I have a motion? Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 5.0, student achievement. 5.1, key performance indicator and attendance, suspensions, expulsion data, and citations update 2017 and 2018. Dr. Morrison?
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, Board. This is one of your key performance indicators, and tonight's presentation covers key data in relation to student behavior and attendance. We appreciate the Board's clear direction to expand youth court and attendance recovery programs and your support for the professional development of staff in cultural proficiency. As you know, many of these actions take time to bear fruit. However, I am proud to announce a very significant decline for African American students in suspensions and citations overall for all students. A lot of positive work has been done, a lot of work still yet to do. Throughout this presentation, you will hear the format tonight. After a brief overview of the data in each area, you'll hear about the particular strategies and solutions used to see better outcomes for our students. And then after you've heard about these actions to decrease suspension or citation, expulsion rates, or increase attendance rate, you'll go into a deeper dive in the data. I want to thank President Medina and Dr. Wyatt for their advice to make sense of all the data. It's a complex topic with a lot of moving parts, but as we do this work in this area, I want to thank them for their leadership. And as a reminder, there'll be an opportunity for questions and further direction from the Board at the end of the presentation. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Lorraine Perez and our two guests, Marlene Bicandova and Steve Donahue, our Assistant Chief of Police. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marsden. Good evening, Board and Cabinet. Through the collaboration between business services, educational services, our police department, and student services, we're bringing forward this information related to our attendance, suspension, expulsion, and citation. This is definitely a collaborative effort. As Dr. Marsden mentioned earlier, it takes efforts on behalf of our entire team to move these dials. And so the presentation that the team will share with you tonight will outline the progress that we've made and our direction moving forward. So as described, with me tonight I have Marlene Bicandova, our Director of Youth Services, and Steve Donahue, our Assistant Chief. And we will also have a couple of principals who will come up and share some information related specifically to their school site. Those two principals are Keisha Handy, the principal at Cole Elementary, and Tony Woods, the principal at Del Vallejo Middle School. So our outcomes for tonight's presentation are to review the data and trends regarding attendance, suspension and expulsion, and citations, as well as sharing the strategies for improvement that are in place or are in development.
Good afternoon. We'll begin with this attendance overview, so I'll allow you to look at that data. But as you can see, average daily attendance pretty much remained consistent. We ended at 49.9% for our average daily attendance, and then chronically absent students, we had a slight increase by 1.4%. And we'll speak to that a little bit later. So moving to the next slide. Attendance improvement strategies. So I wanted to share that a couple of things that we'll be doing in addition to all the work that's been going on last year. In particular, number one, for Tier 1, so this is the school-wide level, one of the big things that we started last year was we began recognizing schools on a regular basis. So this was happening at site leaders meetings, that type of thing. So we really want to develop the incentives for those schools in terms of a lot of them are creating very innovative programs and processes for their Tier 1 strategies, and we're starting to see some improvement in those areas, as the two ladies tonight will show, or two principals will show tonight. In addition, we also worked with human resources this year, and we are now making sure that we are hiring people who represent the community that we serve. We really want to make sure that those people who are going out to sites can really have shared experiences with our community, and they can really service them appropriately. In terms of Tier 2 and Tier 3, we did begin last year bringing hope to Saturdays. Some of you may know this as the ARC program as well. So on the back end of getting kids to school, we involved 21 schools, and we were able to recover 6,387 days. So this is ADA, and this is funds coming back to the sites and site money that can ultimately be used to improve attendance at a Tier 1 level as well. Yes.
So the gross amount we recovered was $507,958. $507,000 for the 6,387 kid days. It was almost 80 ADA, so it was quite significant.
$500,000, and that was just Saturday.
We only ran the
Saturday
program.
schools, yeah.
I have a question about summer school, because I know we had also summer school, correct?
That doesn't go.
Not
to-
for recovery? Oh, okay.
And I know that you have, still will be reviewing the rest of it, and then if we can try to hold the questions, because if you can, obviously this just, because I know it's a long presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we just wanted to point out in Hope to Saturdays that we began it in January, so that's only for half a year. So we know we'll get bigger results this coming school year as well. Yes, correct. From January through June, I believe.
And did you say a pilot at what, only elementary level? Is that what you said? No. Yes?
There is a middle school involved.
Okay.
So we piloted with the 21 schools, and we have some systems to create, and then we can expand from there.
Madam,
Yes.
Madam President, sometimes I can't wait till the end, because
Well,
it's
if it-
really,
yeah,
because
I-
it's really crucial, just really quick. I won't go on and on, but that's really significant, only 21 schools. And if we were to do it at all our schools, that would generate a tremendous, recap, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that at the
Okay,
end.
okay.
Yeah, maybe if you want to jot your questions down, we can go back.
I
to
know,
it.
but sometimes it's like, you forget.
Sure.
Absolutely. And the last thing that we're also adding to improve our strategy or improve our attendance is wraparound supports for especially what I consider Tier 3 students who have severe chronic absentee issues. What I'm doing is we coordinated with Aldo's office in terms of the community health education workers. We're actually using those workers that come from Loma Linda to really support our very challenged families that need extra support. They each will be carrying caseloads of about 30 students each, or 30 families each, and what that's going to do is going to allow the attendance workers or the attendance verifiers and recovery specialists in my department to now serve a broader amount of students, especially those that are bordering on becoming chronically absent. So we really want to try to prevent them from hitting that 10% absentee mark. So now we're getting to do more work that is forward-thinking or being more proactive, because we have extra supports supporting the high-end, the high-need kids. Say it that way.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just, I
Mr.
know
Taylor.
because there's a lot of different subjects in here, so I just want to make sure that, that I say for the record that on page 3, where you have the chronically absent students increased by 1.4%, the increase is actually big. If it went from 16.4% to 17.8%, the increase is bigger than the 1.4%. It's like a 8% increase. If you look at the change between 16.4 to 17.8, that's an 8% change. And I think
Oh,
it's
sorry,
critical.
I
I think it's critical to say that, because it's one thing to say you have. It almost gives you the impression that you have a 1% increase. It's not a 1% increase.
Yes, I see what you're saying. So the increase is not a 1.4%. We went up 1.4 from 16.4% to 17.8%.
Which is 8%. And it should be noted, because it's a big problem. And we should be looking at where the increase is at and what tools we can use to.
Mr. Tillman, which page were you looking at that we're not seeing?
Page 3.
No, page 3, but you're looking at a different page in order to look
No,
at that.
no. If you look at page 3 states that it went from 16.4% to 17.8%. The way it reads, it says chronically absent students increased by 1.4%. It's really an 8% increase. If you look at the change between 16.4%
Okay.
and 17.8, you're right. When you do the subtraction, it's 1.4, but you just take that 1.4 and divide it by 16.4 to give you the change. So the change is an 8% increase.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes, you're correct. I agree. Okay, moving to this next slide, you see the period 2 average daily attendance, and you can see all the various years all the way down to 2013. So I'll just let you look at that. We stayed pretty consistent with the previous year at this point, 94.9. This next graph shows the period 2 attendance, so that's the end of the year. Again, average daily attendance, and this is by grade level, so you can kind of see the different grade levels, and continuation high school is on the end. Okay. And this one is the chronically absent students by grade level. We did discuss, well, why is this happening? Why did the chronically absent students increase? And one of the things that we discussed was this past year there has been a tremendous amount of work around this particular issue. And one of the things that we have gotten better at is defining for sites and for everyone involved what is chronically absent. And so often what we think is occurring is that now we're properly identifying which kids are chronically absent. So now that we have what we feel is a better baseline, we can probably measure growth from this baseline that's exists for this past school year.
Okay.
So moving forward, we hope to really make a huge difference, especially with the strategies and all the work that went on for last year.
I would like to know which kids have health problems like asthma, all the different aspects. I mean, it's just not enough to say chronically absent, but what are the circumstances?
And so thank you for that question. That's actually exactly what we were talking about. So we're creating and putting systems in place so that we are able to track that. So we're pulling and partnering with our different departments better. I was speaking with our health services this morning and talking exactly about that. When we can identify who those students are, that we're able to provide that wraparound support and service to the family related specifically to the reason for their chronic absence, whether that's asthma or other things.
And here we have the chronically absent students by program groups. And I'll let you look at that for a second.
Did we pass the ethnicity, the race ethnicity one? Did we talk about that
Did
one?
we?
Maybe I just. There you go.
Okay, we can address this one first. So chronically absent students by race and ethnicity. One thing we did want to point out. Okay, moving to the next one. I didn't have any notes. Sorry, I didn't have any notes on that one. I apologize. This one is chronically absent students by program groups. So we have English learners, special ed, that type of program. That's what we mean by that. Okay. And now we're moving on to suspensions and expulsion overview. So you can see here
Hold on.
that
Before we move to the suspension expulsions,
Absolutely.
I do want to ask if any board members have any questions regarding the chronic absent students before we move on to expulsions and suspensions
Madam President?
or attendance. Mr. Tillman?
Yeah, the numbers, and thanks for presenting the numbers tonight, but when you look at the larger groups, when you look at the African-American community, I mean, you went from 23% to 27%, so, I mean, that's definitely a area of concern because, again, that's a rather large increase in the chronically absent. So I guess at some point, I think we should have a presentation just on chronic absenteeism and talk about some of the things we're doing to minimize those numbers. You know, I know Ms. Linda Hart did a program last year, and she was telling me some of the reasons why students didn't come to school, and it's a wide range of things, but I think we should have the discussion here at the district. So maybe there's some things we can implement to either, I know some of it's students being afraid to walk through different neighborhoods, so maybe we can calculate that in, and when we're doing the outreach, be able to either transfer those students or provide transportation if that's a ongoing big problem. And I guess even to evaluate some of the programs. I know Ms. Hart did the program last year. She's not doing it this year, but if we have results that were positive, then I think it should behoove us when we look at these numbers to try to do outreach and keep those programs going if they made a difference, because this is a huge problem. And I don't even care about the money part of it. For me, it's just the human part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have students that aren't coming to school. And if we reach out to them, we can find solutions and ways to get them to our school. And the sooner we do it, the better off we are.
Thank you to Mr. Tillman, and we also want to incorporate, also add Pacific Islanders, American Indian, and if you notice, everyone has increased slightly, except for the Filipino population.
And the only reason why I singled out African Americans, because if you look at the numbers, they represent 6,297 compared to, I'm not saying it's not an issue for 199 students, but you're talking about a much larger population of students, and that's the biggest population of students that has the highest increase. So that's the reason why I say we definitely got to target that population.
Okay. And, Dr. Flores?
Yes, and right now, this is averages for everybody. And I would like it disaggregated by elementary, middle school, and high school. Because what Mr. Tillman is saying about, walking to school, and that may be an area of concern. Again, I'm really concerned with the health. And also, I'm concerned, and I really appreciate Ms. Hart's presentation. I don't know how many board meetings ago, but she, was very comprehensive and telling us why they were not coming and the solutions behind it, and then how she outreached to the parents and to the child, and they figured it out. And that's what we need to do in terms of getting our kids to school. And I think her program was very comprehensive. It was a beginning, and I believe she's a social worker, so she was able to connect, our families to the wraparound services that you guys are wanting to do as well. So I think that would be really, really important. And, again, the numbers, they have to be disaggregated so that we know, because it just washes it out when you average everything.
So the 2 points I've heard so far, and after staff does, as you heard, wants to do a deeper dive. This is
Right.
kind of our first stab at this
Right.
effort. We've gotten better at taking attendance counting. We weren't doing as good of a job of really collecting data on who are chronically absent. So this is our good baseline for us. And now we will begin building a presentation to look at just the chronically absent, to look at programs that have served them in the past, and then, as Dr. Flores mentioned, to disaggregate data by both race and school level. You have school level separately from race, and you have race separately from
Right.
school level, but what I'm hearing you say is also disaggregate that.
And
by
gender.
race. And gender.
I
Thank
think
you.
gender's huge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can do that.
And Ms. Rogers, you had a question?
Yeah, and I also wanted to just comment on, I know we use the word wraparound services, and, we need to identify what those are, because it's important to know that just one type of wraparound service does not fit across the board. And that's why we always ask for the data to be broken out so that we can get in the habit of seeing, where is the biggest problems, and then why are we having them, and what are we doing? Are we addressing them the exact same way? And when we have this true partnership with the Department of Behavioral Health, you will see that that is just how they operate when providing services and needs to individuals. And that's one of the reasons why Ms. Hart is able, that's just her expertise in that area, because it's not trying to do a one size, we have this one type of service and then we're going to give it and hopefully they come. There's different reasons why they're not coming, and we have to dig into that. And so hopefully when you bring the presentation, show us what you are doing versus what we want to do. We want to see that too. What are we doing, and then what do we need to add, and where are we missing it?
Okay,
And I wanted to add Madam President, that, and also recommend that, when you put the percentages, it should also be the raw number of the percentage. For African Americans, 27.3 is 1,700 children. That's a lot of children. For Latino, 16.1 of 40,743 is 6,518. That's a lot of children. And so we need to have those numbers. I don't know how you do it, but I guess you guys have to figure out how to do that. But we need the raw numbers, not just the percentages. I mean, I can calculate it really fast, but it would be nice to see it when you present it. Right.
And we do have some of that information for you here, and we can share that with you. But you're right, the slides, getting all of that information on there, Dr. Flores, makes it a little clouded with the rest of the information that's there.
All right, thank you.
When we attempted to put raw data in there, it was very difficult to read, but we do have it for you, the raw numbers.
So now we're moving into suspensions and expulsions?
Yes.
Okay.
Before we move on,
Yes.
and this is to Dr. Hill. Dr. Hill, on page 7, is that normal to have chronic absenteeism among continuation high schools? Is that? And I guess Scott, to Dr. Wyatt, also.
Well, it is for a multitude of reasons. One, a number of those students are working, and a number of those students are working evenings. And I think with having a morning and evening program, and with the transfer in, it's a revolving door at the alternative school. So you just don't get them in September and they're there until June. You might have 300 in September. By December, you might have 300, but maybe only 100 of the original 100 who was there. So
And-
depending on what's going on with them, whether it's juvenile hall student, or where it could even be a jail incarcerated student.
So you're making up a point. Should those students be considered chronically absent, though?
Personally, I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think they should be part of the mix. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
one
a
of the.
state definition. So
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why we haven't looked at, I don't think we've ever had a look at chronically absent data point since the state said, now you will look at chronically absent. That's why it's new for us.
Yeah, and it's state
I'm getting nod. I mean, that's what happened. The state
Right.
says you need to measure chronically absent students, so now we're doing that. This is our first year doing that. We're getting good at doing that. So what you see in front of you is actually baseline, even though you have 3 years of data, because we went back, because we want you to see a trend.
Right.
So when we get the presentation, then maybe we should get the definition of what chronic
Right.
absenteeism is also.
And Dr. Hill, could you explain more your idea about different cycles for the kids, or having, like what you said?
Well, when I was at San Andreas, I would bring students in every 3 weeks or 6 weeks, something to that extent. But I think now, again, with the changes at the state level, they bring them in every day or every other day. And most of the students you're going to get at Sierra, and I would say also most of the ones you get at San Andreas, these are students who are not attending to begin with.
Right.
So the pattern is going to follow them from the traditional school that they've been taken from.
So you're recommending that we make policy to accept them on a daily basis?
No, I'm not recommending that, because that's
What are you recommending?
That's quite a
task?
task for the teaching staff.
Mm.
I don't know if it's going to get any better.
Right,
Our students are who we get,
right,
and the traditional schools are not sending the students who come every day.
right.
They're sending the ones they haven't seen in a week or 2 or 3. And they aren't going to change the pattern because they're going to San Andreas or Sierra.
Right.
They're going to change the pattern when things are meaningful for them. And they do. And that's why, I know the state is the one in charge, but I still don't support that this has to be part of our accountability, because not only is it unfair, it's impossible.
Right.
It's impossible to give a good, accurate assessment of what's happening in our district with attendance.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Board, if you could, at the top of slide 9, and it's actually at the top of all the slides on chronically absent, the state's definition is there on chronically absent. There's a lot of information on these
Yeah, I
slides.
saw that.
If you see this, the state has defined a chronically
Right.
absent student as a pupil missing 10% or more of the school year, whether absence is excused or unexcused. So
Okay.
just to clarify.
And Mr. Gallo has a comment, but I do want to mention that it's 7 o'clock, so for those that have public comments, if you can just be a little patient and let us finish the presentation. before
And I'll
we
make
move forward.
mine quick. We've seen engagement of our students to be a real driver in attendance.
Mhm.
And the data's early, but at San Andreas, we've created some unique pathway opportunities for some of these kids. And I know the principal is putting together these stats on attendance and looking at this from who's in the pathway, and who haven't signed up for a pathway. And just knowing the kids that I've seen there, we see kids who never came coming every day. So it's anecdotal right now, but the data's being collected. And so I think we're going to see some proof. I mean, that's the whole point of what we're doing, right? When we try putting these interventions in place, I mean, the goal is to have the data to back it up. So, and when you read, what Gallup has said, inspiring kids and engaging them are the two critical elements that determine, whether or not a student's going to attend. So.
All right, well, thank you so much. So then we can move forward.
Thank you. Moving forward to suspensions and expulsion data. So as you can see there in the overview, we had a wonderful decrease from our suspensions, so suspension incidences across the district. And as you can see, expulsions, it says it increased from 91 to 102. However, I'd like to point out that that is early data. So at the time when they pull this data from CalPADS, we have students in there that have a temporary ARIES code that's pretty much like a suspended expulsion. And what happens is those kids are diverted often to youth court. So once they fulfill their terms in youth court, we terminate that expulsion altogether. So we are going back in to remove those expulsion codes. We have until September to correct the data with CalPADS, and we will ensure that each student is coded correctly. So at this time, it appears that we have, for certain, 59 expulsions and 9 pending right now. And we believe so it could be as high as 68 or as low as 59. The 9 pending students, we believe, will finish their terms and their work with youth court, and we're very hopeful on that. But the big news is that it should be much lower than 102 once we get all the data in and check each student individually and ensure that our data is correct. So that is a big celebration, and that speaks to a ton of our work, including youth court, all the work with PBIS, restorative justice at the school sites, and just a complete turnaround with a lot of schools in terms of their culture and climate.
All right,
That's a
thank
huge
you.
celebration. When we get the final numbers, I would love to report that back out to you. What are we doing differently and new in terms of our strategies for moving forward and improving? For Tier 1, we established school climate and culture teams. So last year was a big difference and a big change in how we ran things. And that include staff members. You get a ton of staff input and support. Those teams are trained in trauma-informed practices, cultural proficiency, things like restorative practices. So that is a huge strategy that will be assisting a lot of our schools along in the process. Under Tier 2 and Tier 3, one of the big things we're doing from my office is we will be launching out restorative teams. So if there is a big incident at a school site, I can launch out experts to work alongside with counselors and principals on running things like restorative conferences. So these are going to be things that they're going to do to help prevent us from having more green folders or expulsion cases coming through my office. So we're going to be more preventative in my department than instead of reactionary. In addition, a new thing that our department began is we started doing preemptive restorative meetings with cases that are likely to come through our office as an expulsion case. So I've been finding students who have extensive records or are on their way to expulsion. We're doing preemptive meetings. During those meetings with the family and the students, we're doing restorative practices. We're doing a narrative approach and having them come up with a plan of support for the student, and then I'm giving them as many resources as I can. So we're trying to prevent students from also coming into my office on an expulsion. And the last thing, of course, is continuing to push youth court. My goal this year is to really help the team in developing, really strong models of support, so that way other schools and other, even other cities will be interested in coming to check out our model here and pushing forward on youth court. That's been a huge resource for us.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Tillman?
And Ms. Blackendorf, I just wanted to say, if you need more funding for that, then the board wants to know. I mean, it's really something that I think we want to support. I think it's going to make the difference, and I really think it's the game changer for us. So whatever we have to do to push it, and I know you have a proven success record, so I'm glad you're at the helm. So whatever we need to support you, that's what we want to hear about.
I certainly appreciate that, and I know coming from my new office, it is a huge benefit to have youth court as a resource and an alternative for our kids. I think it's one of the most exciting parts about my job. Thank you for that support. However, on numbers of students suspended, again, you see a nice drop from the year prior. And again, this speaks to schools have to get really good at their tier 1 supports in terms of PBIS, school culture, restorative justice. And when they get good at their tier 1, then the number of students that engage in activities that result in suspensions begins to decline. So this is a good indicator that our schools are getting better at climate and culture. This is the total number of days suspended. And as you can see, we have, again, another drop. We think that this year, with me being able to, in my department, being able to train the VPs and get a little bit more consistency, we believe we can have another huge drop in that number for the following year. So we will continue to do that work. This data is just comparing us to the county and state, so I'll let you look at that comparison data. On county and state, you see that we do not have official data yet for 2017-18 because we have to pull on state websites. We have to wait until they report theirs to the state so that we can pull their current data. We were able to pull ours, which is at 6%. And we have noticed that the state and county have kind of leveled off, and we have been able to still make some gains and reduce suspension rates at our district. This is our comparison districts. We did have to pull from 16-17. Again, we don't have the new data yet. It is still early. And if you look at the first column, we do have our current rate for this 17-18 school year, which is 5.2. So it is showing our 16-17 as 5.7, and then the slight decrease for 17-18. This is local districts, so these are the districts around us that we could find that were similar in demographics.
Why don't we see like Moreno Valley or Rialto in here? Yes, okay.
Got it? Okay, moving forward. This one is suspension rates by student and race and ethnicity. We did want to point out a nice decrease in the African American suspension rates. And we absolutely believe that is work from multiple departments, especially targeted instruction, and a district-wide effort to work on our improvement in diversity and equity, cultural proficiency. Okay. Thank you. Here we have by student programs. So something to note is that some students are counted in twice, like in different programs or groups. So you could have a student that is a foster youth but also an English learner. They would be counted twice. So those numbers do not add up to the total. Something else to note is that on a lot of these program group reports, our actual population of students has also decreased. So the raw numbers are lower, but the percentages may look higher. So it still is we don't want that concentration, the high concentration of our students. So for example, English learners has decreased in our population almost by, I lost the number. We went from almost by 900, almost over 900 students. So we have 900 less English learners, if that makes any sense.
Dr. Flores?
It should be noted, these are English learners that have not been reclassified. And so when you add the reclassified by 4 years, it's like triple that. So, or double that. So we have probably about 28,000 English learners, including the reclassified. And the new ESSA federal program says we have to count them as English learners until they're done. So this does not reflect at all the total of our English language learners.
Okay. We do have separate RFEP numbers for the reclassified kids. We
Right,
can
but
make sure to
they're
add
now
that in.
supposed to be together.
Yeah, we can add that in.
I mean, you could disaggregate them as
Yeah.
well, but
But make sure we add
also,
'em in.
when you say English language learners, they are still English language learners.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Tillman?
Yeah, and I think another number you might want to show is, because you have Hispanic, and I'm assuming Hispanic includes the English learners. I think you should have a classification, Hispanic non-English learners. No, just Hispanic, but,
Non-English learners,
Right.
not Spanish speaking.
Take that.
no, Hispanic,
Them separate.
but Hispanics that are not classified as English learners.
Mm-hmm,
Because that population a lot of times is
right.
a lot different than the Hispanic English learner
So
population.
then it's English only.
Because you see where if you look at the English learners suspension rate, it's much lower than the total Hispanic population rate. And so if you saw that number, it would be
Right.
even higher.
That
And
makes
that's
sense.
just something you want to look at, I think.
Okay.
Madam President, I have
Yes.
are we done? So I can
Dr.
ask a
Flores.
question?
I
Could
think
you-
she has,
oh.
did she finish that one
Almost. Are you
Are you
presentation?
done?
Almost there.
Okay.
One more slide.
All right.
One more slide, and then we can go ahead before we go into expulsions. When actually, there's only one sheet for expulsion, so maybe if you can just wait for two more sheets, and then she'll be.
Okay.
And this is just final numbers on expulsions for the past 3 years. Again, we're looking at early data, and we're hoping to be able to have that number corrected as the time goes on, and we finish students in youth court, and that should be down to anywhere from 59 to 68.
So just to be clear, you're saying the number that's for 17, 18 that says 102 now, you
Yes.
think that'll be at what, once the data's clear?
We have 59 for certain, 9 pending, so it could be as high as 68 or as low, in between 59 and 68.
Okay.
So depending on the success of the 9 pending cases.
Got it. Thank you.
We didn't want to pull a different data because this is what's on CalPads, so we didn't want to be untrue to what they have right
Sure.
now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
And then now this would be the time, if the board has any questions on this section before we go into the final overview of the citation data.
Dr. Flores?
Yes, if you'll go to slide 12, I think that our data has progressively gone down, and I would like to recognize our schools who have had the most, very salient drop in their suspensions. And I'm thinking about King Middle School, because I was at King for a mural event, and I asked Ms. Howdigi, like, what are highlights of your last year? You know, I wanted to know, like, what accomplishments had you done, and it was significant. The year before, they suspended 300 kids, and this past year was only 15. That's significant. We need to celebrate that, and so I would recommend that we board, recognize our schools that are accomplishing, this feat as well. And then on slide 13, this is a Janie, she's gone, Janie question. Loss of ADA. What would be the loss of ADA of 12,583 kids that were suspended? I guess, are these in-house suspensions or are these off-campus suspensions?
We now have to count suspensions as both OCS, like if you're doing an on-campus suspension room, you have to count those as suspensions.
And my next question is, do we lose ADA?
I believe what about on-campus suspensions?
Under suspensions?
Yeah, we'll clarify that. I believe that we do, but I'll clarify.
Oh,
Just
here's
to ensure.
Janie. My question was
Not
on,
if they're on
on
campus.
slide
Well,
13.
and you gotta do something with them, but.
We have
I'm
12,583
sure
suspensions.
we briefed on that.
So what does that amount to in terms of ADA that we lost? And then my next question was, if they're in-house, do we still count them as not being present, even though they're in-house?
I would imagine we would lose ADA on in-house suspensions because they're now just counted as suspensions. If you remove a kid from a classroom, that is a suspension.
So we'll get that information to you.
You'll get
and the
that
amount, yeah.
information, okay.
Yes.
So approximately, if it's between the first day of school and P2, which is March, April timeframe, we lose about $80 per day that a student is out. And so-
$80 per day,
Yeah,
so
that
it'd
was
be
the-
80 times
yeah,
12,500.
approximately.
Okay, that's a lot of money. Yeah, okay.
Madam President?
Mr. Gallo, and then Mr. Tillman.
Yes, thank you. Have we done a survey yet of the correlation between, these reductions that we're seeing in suspensions and citations and all of this, and school climate and/or incidences of, maybe behavioral issues that we've just been throwing under the rug and avoiding, or, is there more swearing at teachers on campus? Is there more? I'd just be curious if we're seeing any corollary effects in school climate as it relates to these reductions. Hopefully it's behavioral
Yeah,
changes.
so the
and-
question is,
and we're
is
doing
it,
this, so.
is it actually affecting the positive
Right,
atmosphere?
exactly.
Or is it,
Yeah.
some artificial?
Yeah, is it just an
there's-
avoidance of
Right,
dealing
right,
with it?
right, understood.
Yeah,
So
I'm just been
yeah.
curious about that.
Let
so.
let the team respond to that, Lorraine or Dr. Perez or Marlene. If you wanted to respond to Mr. Gallo's comments.
That is one of the reasons why it's good to look at multiple data points. And because if a good thing to look at is Gallup poll engagement numbers and scores. If the climate and culture is improving, then multiple data points begin to improve. As I got to see at my own school site in my experience with Curtis, it was not just one thing. Like if you only saw suspensions reduced, then that might be an alarm. So you have to look at many data points. And the two schools that are represented tonight have multiple measures that are beginning to improve, in addition to just even hearing from some of their staff members how drastically different their sites are now. So
Yeah, and I guess it just raises the question then,
Absolutely.
what are those combining actions and interventions that might include just suspended drug court, all of these, drug court, the youth court.
Youth court.
I'm
Goodness,
thinking
Mr. Gallo.
Pat Morris's drug court, right? But between these types of interventions and others that we should be combining at
Absolutely.
local schools to see these kinds of movements. Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
All right, Mr.
Thank you.
Tillman?
As someone mentioned, if you leave the class, that's considered being absent. What's the difference between a teacher writing referral and a suspension?
a teacher writes an office high-level referral,
Right.
which means that there has to be an intervention in the office. Sometimes that results in a suspension, often not. So in the same token, we were just talking about with Mr. Gallo, when you see suspension numbers going down, you should also see office-level referrals. That's an indicator of your school culture. Are the teachers improving the way they relate to kids and the way they react to kids? When they get better in the classroom, ultimately your office high-level referrals go down as well. You're teaching them to use PBIS, you're teaching them how to have positive ratios with the kids. They stop sending the kids to the office so much because they're preventing the issues at the tier 1 level.
Gotcha. So, but a kid could leave the class with a referral and it not be counted as an absent if they get sent back to the class.
Yeah, office referrals are not absences. It's usually a quick process, and they're either returned to class for the next period or that period, or if they're suspended, then the suspension turns into an absence, yes.
So what happened at your site when you had the reduction in suspensions? You also had a reduction in referrals?
Absolutely. Yes, because our focus was, I told the admin team, we're not going to not suspend just for our sake of our numbers to look good.
Right.
What we were going to do is really build the capacity of the teachers to be better with students, so we prevent the behaviors that were coming to the office, and that's what did it. Is the tier 1 focus is huge. That prevented that resulted in our 70% drop in high-level referrals and suspension rates. They went down at the same time.
And can you clarify, what does Tier 1 mean for the board?
So tier 1 practices are anything that happens school-wide for all kids. PBIS is a huge program that has tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supports. Tier 1 is typically your teachers. So you want all sites to have incredibly strong tier 1 PBIS and restorative practices in the classroom. And then tier 2 is when they come to the office, how do the VPs respond in terms of those kids? Tier 2 can be also done in the school, in the classroom, if needed by the teacher, but often it's also done by vice principals. And tier 3 is definitely done by admin, typically.
And just out of curiosity, using your site as a test site, how long were you at Curtis?
8 years.
And when did you start the whole PBIS thing?
That was, I believe, a year and a half into, it was very chaotic and very difficult, and the suspensions, if you remember, were at 736 suspensions in my second year, and midway through that year is when we began. So we started seeing a drop the following year, and then the second year we really saw a drop.
Now, when you talked about this teacher training, did most of the teachers that were there when you got there, were they still there at the end, or did a lot of teachers leave?
A few teachers moved in the beginning. New leadership, some people tend to move. But a lot of our teachers stuck it through with me in terms of the ones that had seen Curtis in its beginning stages with PBIS to where it is now.
And they bought into the training and it really worked?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. We can move on.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here on place of Joe Polino, who's in Orlando as part of the Maxwell Group. He just was inducted as part of the Maxwell Group.
Maybe better to take that thing out, put it right up to your mouth. It's hard to hear you.
I'm proud to be here representing Chief Polino, who was just inducted as part of the Maxwell Group in Orlando. So, and presenting our wonderful work on citation, which I believe on our department and district level is intentional work. We've worked closely with special education. We've worked closely with alternative education, the alternative programs, where we instructed our CSOs as well as our police officers in trauma-informed principles. As a matter of fact, last Thursday, we had some CPI training through special ed, how to deal with the kids, how to reduce their tensions. So I think that's been going on for several years, which has improved our citations and how our staff deals with the kids on campus and befriended the kids more than seen as a authoritarian type situation. We're going to cover the citation arrest for a 5-year summary as well as the felony and misdemeanors. We're proud of the intentional work we've done. In 2013, 2014, juvenile citations were at 1,330. Since then, 2017, 2018, we're down to 221 for the entire year. Majority of those are incidents that occur after hours, some of them. So the majority of our interaction with the police and the students on our campus are handled through a partnership with the staff, the administration, and the PBIS system, which we're very, very proud of. So a lot of the 221 are burglaries, a lot of trespassing, where we try to handle these kind of things as low as possible. So these kids were found in a building where was their intent to burglarize the school, or was their intent just to be there messing around? They shouldn't have been in there, yes. But we believe using the spirit of law versus the letter of law, handling it at the lowest threshold possible by doing the trespass citations versus the burglary charge. One's a misdemeanor versus a felony. We feel that's very important. We work closely with youth court. We have 2 cadets who are interns going to college full time. They work directly with U Court. They're assigned there. We had 2 assigned there for the entire year this year. Going on to the next slide, we tried to do some comparisons this year of the citation data. We found this several years in the past. A lot of districts like to hide these numbers and don't give us the true numbers. So even with that fact, we're still lower than most districts smaller than us. I think it's important if you look at Fontana Unified, some of their citation numbers are carried by Fontana Police Department because they have officers from Fontana Police Department on their middle schools. So these aren't, if you look at Fontana School District as a whole, this isn't all their numbers. Fontana City carries some of their citation numbers at the middle school level.
Really?
We're still waiting on Santa Ana too. And another important feature, if you look at these, is that our officers work 24 hours a day, where a lot of these school districts end at 4 o'clock. So they rely on the city or the county, depending on where their school sits, to enforce the laws, and they carry the citation numbers on their juveniles. If you go to slide 23, it's the breakdown of the 221 citations for the year by felony offense and misdemeanor offense. I'll give you a second to look at those.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Tillman?
No, I just want to commend you guys for the work you've done. I know it wasn't easy to start with, and but again, you know, it's affecting and changing lives. So you've done it the right way. So I think everyone's better off in the end.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, so
Chief
thank you.
Polino, when he came in, said, "Look, this is one of our issues. We need to start addressing." He began a change of culture in our department from the beginning when he came in, that this needs to change, and it's been adopted, and it's really a team there. And I'll show you some flyers at the end that we passed out. That
Nice.
our officers are out tonight at Davidson Elementary doing National Night Out.
Nice.
So it's important to know that these officers really care about our community. They're out there doing things on their own time, making sure they donate their time with these kids. We have some great programs, and without the partnerships with, Lorraine's office and youth services and special ed, it wouldn't be possible for us to do these kinds of things.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Dr. Flores?
I also want to thank you, but I also want to recognize COPE and ICUC for bringing it to our attention as a board, and commend the board for taking action, and also our cabinet it was a collective effort on all our parts in terms of, wanting to do the best for our kids and to shift the culture. And we still have a ways to go, given the suspensions that we've done, but the citations are down, and these are egregious citations. And I don't know how we deal with those, but hopefully we will. And but I think that we owe a lot to our community organizations as well.
Thank you. And I do want to add that the school police being part of the conversation was very important too, because we were able to hear their side and then get their input, and of course try to collaborate in how to best move this forward. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And yes, Dr. Scott Wyatt.
Thank you, Madam President, and again, thank you everyone for the wonderful presentation. Assistant Chief Donahue, just to you and the chief as well as the rest of our school police folks. I love numbers, and I'm looking at the decrease in citations, and over that period, we're talking about 83.4% decrease. That's significant. I mean, it really is, and I know I've been monitoring this, and we asked the chief to report out monthly on this, and I wonder for my colleagues how many of us read that report in detail each month.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Font's
I know,
that little.
and I don't have my glasses on right now, and I left in my truck, so I know I'm not going to be able to see that normal report. But what I'm getting to, though, is it looks like we're going in the right direction with all of this. I mean, significantly going in the right direction. And do we still need that monthly report, or should we go down to quarterly? Because a lot of our reports are quarterly. I don't want to belabor our folks with work they don't need to do. I think I entrust them myself to see that this trend is going down to where I would feel comfortable with the quarterly report, not necessarily a monthly report. But, that's my opinion. Also, I would like to see, I saw your positive citation, or positive tickets, excuse me, at 1,433. I'd like to see the 5-year summary on that as well, or 3 or 4-year summary. I'm not sure how long that's been around. So we can see how
Absolutely.
that's gone up, the reciprocal of the citations going down.
It's gone up as we've grown our partnerships with other businesses in the community, as well as with our safe routes. We're starting to work to make safe locations for our kids that are in trouble to be able to stop at. And they're going to be in partnership with us as far as these kids that are afraid to walk home or encounter some kind of danger, that they can go to these locations, which will have a unique sign marked by our school district. So these kids can go there for help. And these people have been trained on where to call, how to call us, and they've been vetted as far as being safe, a little background check to make sure these people are okay for our kids to go there.
Okay, that's awesome. And really, when you talk about community policing, that is the essence of community policing, what we're doing right now. And you talked about our community partners and getting them involved. That's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that presentation as well, our Safe Routes to School. I know a number of us on this board, we've been talking
Right.
about that for probably about up to 2 years now. And it's starting to come to fruition, meaning policy and practice. So again, my compliments to everyone involved. I know we have a big event coming up at Riley Elementary. So for those that can make it, I'm sure it's going to be a grand event and just a sign of things to come for our district, not just at one school, but many schools across the city. So thanks again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
I do
Dr.
want to
Scott.
point out, it's not just mine or Chief Polino's work, it's all of the work of our entire officers. They really believe in our community and are out there. And like I said, tonight's a perfect example. They're all out at one of our schools supporting Davidson, supporting the neighborhoods, and that's all in their own time.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, the key for this, too, Madam President and board and community, is that we're stopping the school to prison pipeline. We're not participating in it. We are actually stopping it and investing in our kids and so that our kids know we care for them. And that's what's important. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So if we can move on. We were on page 24, continued focus, right? Or did we? Okay, we're done. Cole
So I'm going
Elementary
to introduce our principal from Cole Elementary, Mrs. Handy, and she's going to share a little bit about her school, and immediately following, Tony Woods will share some things that are taking place on her campus.
Good evening, Dr. Marsden, members of the board and cabinet. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
I'm so excited to share with you the things that we've done this past school year. We've done a lot of work together, and I can't wait to share and talk a little bit about those 3 things that we did that I really can contribute to the growth. If you look at this slide here, it's you could clearly see that there has been a decrease in our suspension as well as our referrals. It's over the last 3 years, so we reduced our referrals by over 50%. So last year was at 190, and this year we have just, I believe it's 82. Also, if you look at our ELA and our math benchmarks, like Marlene talked about, everything is growing. As a result of our school climate, we have grown 10% in both ELA and math on our CAS this year as well. So we're really, really excited about that. The 3 main practices that really contributed to our growth this year is that we decided that we needed a shared vision. I used to be a teacher at Cole. In 2003, I began teaching there. And it was the same mission statement that we created together when I was a teacher. So I said, why don't we think about what is it that we want to see at our school? So what should it feel like? What should it sound like? What should it look like? So we got together using Zweibach training, and we created a shared vision. And from that vision, we built a framework of coherence. Next slide. So that framework of coherence really talks about what we will be doing in terms of school culture. It's the PBIS. It's the one there in the middle. We also identified academic objectives and goals that we wanted to make sure that we implemented. And lastly, how do we have parents engage in the learning that's happening at Cole? So the first thing that we did, we started just to dig into research. We started to read, we even met on Saturdays. We read John Hattie, Visible Learning. We read Robin Jackson, Effective Instruction. We learned about learning progressions and what that looked like. We learned about how to write learning intentions and targets and measure that with success criteria. We talked about that. And then we also talked about that first instruction, that tier 1, that was lacking. And then what could we do about it in order to make sure that all students were learning on our campus? So looking at the RTI model, tier 1 means 80% of students will be learning. And we looked at that also as it related to behavior. So when we wrote our learning objective, 80% of students need to be able to master that first instruction. So I'm deliberate in terms of my planning with my partner. I'm checking to make sure that the students are making the necessary growth and meeting that target, that learning target. And then if they didn't, we talk about that. So we also had lesson studies. So weekly they met, looked at the scope and sequence, looked at the standards, unwrapping that, and was able to develop really strong first instruction practices. After we did that, we said, you know, we want to see good instruction. We want to see what PBIS is all about. So we identified some schools in our district and also outside of our district that were getting high results. So we went to Curtis Middle School. So all of the teachers, every staff member, every certificated staff, we visited Curtis Middle School. And then after that, we came back and we debriefed. We talked about what are the things that we saw that were promising and things that we could commit to and add to our framework there for PBIS. And then we also visited schools such as Emerton. They had strong systems of practice there. So after we met there, we came back and we talked about what commitments could we make after we saw, you know, what we saw at Emerton. And then we shared all of this information in a Google Drive, and then during our MOU time, we talked about what we saw and how we can make this school-wide, not just one classroom, but really coherent and clear articulation throughout as it related to practices. We also went to Hillside. Hillside was excellent in terms of rigor and relevance. And even in our studies, when we were reading with Robin Jackson, we talked about rigor. So when we went to see the actual students working at a level where we would like our students, taking them from adaptation of knowledge to, acquisition of knowledge to adaptation of knowledge, what does that learning progression really looks like? So we came back and we also, again, made commitments and talked about what we would do to change our old practices. The biggest learning that we got from our visits is we realized, and not even just from our visits, but from our planning and talking and just collaborating as a whole, we decided that it wasn't the kids that needed to change, it was us. And so once we got that we needed to change, everything changed from that point on. The teachers realized that they were doing the work and the kids weren't doing the work. So we had to just be patient and allow learning to happen. And so that's what happened, and that's why we got a lot of the success. What we're moving forward right now is, and we started it last year, is we're building leader efficacy. We want our students to know that they can be leaders. We visited Rialto, a school in Rialto, I believe it's Donaloo, and we also visited a school in Romaland Elementary. They're lighthouse schools. So they do Leader in Me there. So we learned about that last year. And this year we're implementing Leader in Me in small phases. So we do have leadership clubs that we're establishing. For example, Odyssey of the Mind, Penguin Ambassadors, Tech Club, just to name a few. And there's a certain criteria that students have to meet in order to get into the club, and also a certain criteria that they have to meet in order to stay in the club. And so we're building a mindset of excellence and understanding what those 7 principles of what an effective leader is, the tenets of the 7 habits of highly effective people. So they're learning how to be proactive. They're learning the win-win. And the reason why we want to focus on developing teacher or leader advocacy is to empower them and to also challenge the students to understand that they can create change on their campus. And we also know that they have permission and the power to make that change. So in closing, one of the things that we believe at Cole is that we believe that students are successful as a result of our collective actions toward meeting whatever the goals that we create together. So it's that togetherness, that collective teacher efficacy, that's something that we're all about. And because of that, we've seen behavior drastically decrease, improve, and we've also seen our test scores go up.
All right, thank you.
Hi. Good evening, Madam President, Vice President Rogers, Board and Superintendent and Cabinet. I'm Tony Woods, and I am the proud principal at Del Vallejo Middle School. I'm very blessed to be there. I'm going to just hit a couple points of our data, which I feel has been very successful for us and our school and our culture with our students as well as our families and our staff. One of the things that I want to point out on our data is our decrease in suspensions. As we were speaking earlier about, I believe it was Mr. Tillman that talked about that the suspensions can decrease, but what are we doing? What are the proactive things that we're doing, and what are the interventions that we're putting in place? Because suspensions can just be numbers, but if you don't have something in place, then you never know where it's going to go the following year. So one of the things that we did have a really big drop in suspensions. I tried to do my calculation at home. I hope I did it correctly. I calculated 46%. I had my husband help me a little bit with that. So we went down 46% in suspensions. And so I always believe if you're going down, then interventions and proactiveness should be going up. So a few of the things that we have been doing with that is our team, our vice principals collectively brought our teachers together, and we took the top 3 offenses with referrals that could potentially go into suspensions, and we created other means of corrections. What are we going to do with our students in lieu of suspension? And what can we do to proactively, when we see this happening with our students, such as cursing at the teacher, what can we do to correct them immediately with the teacher? What interventions can we put in place? What conversations can we have with the students? And so those were put into place. We had our top 3, and we worked on that collectively as a group. So the teachers were involved. So they weren't just getting this protocol of what they're going to do. They actually wrote the protocol, and so which was really good. We also had interventions put into place. We had our staff acting as mentors. From our counselors to our custodians. They work with our students. They mentor our students. We have some of our staff, our classified staff as well as certificated staff, working with our students within the sports programs, working with our students at lunchtime, giving up their time at the beginning of the school day, at the end of the school day, to work with the students and to really make those connections with them. We had a great success last year with home visits. I have some wonderful staff that are willing to go to the home and do those home visits to just speak to the parents, because they're not coming to the school site, but to speak to the parents in regards to what can we do to help support you, to help support your student at the school site. We've also had, within our team meetings, our teachers have common prep periods where they share their students, and then when we have our team meetings, really going in and working with the teams to have those effective meetings and discussing students, goal setting with the students, putting in those interventions, and really being very specific as to what behaviors we're working on, and also rewarding our students. We piloted last year a program called PBIS Rewards, which is a scanning point system for students. We piloted it with our 6th grade teachers and our 7th grade teachers, and it was wonderful. Our students got incentives throughout the year. At the end of the year, our top 50 point earners earned a trip to Fiesta Village, which was graciously sponsored by one of our teachers' uncles, and he paid for their admission. We paid for the bus. And our students had a fantastic time. So they had something positive to work towards, and then they also had interventions put in place for that. Also with our attendance, we saw a 1% increase. I really do contribute that to our home visits as well. If we hadn't seen a kid, 2 days we were calling, we were going to the home, we were making sure that they were okay. Our counselors were really great with that. And also our teachers, and just working, and I stand at the front gate and I greet the students as they come in, and then if they weren't here the day before, I ask them where they were, and they're like, well, I wasn't here. I'm like, I know you weren't here, that's why I'm asking you, where were you? And just having that connection with our students. And so it's really, I think sometimes our students, especially in middle school, I call us the middle child, because we're not the youngest ones, we're not the oldest ones, and sometimes they feel left out, and where they are mindset-wise, they're just trying to fit. And if somebody just notices something, one little thing about them, then they're going to say, okay, I do matter. And so those are a couple things that we did in regards to the suspension decrease and the attendance increase. And then that will filter into our scores. We made a slight increase with our language arts, a 3%. We stayed the same with math. As we dig deeper into the data, we're going to see that we made a huge growth getting the students towards that meeting the standards. And so we're very excited about that. Three of the promising practices that we are very excited for and that we have been working on towards the end of last year and then into this year is our collaborative professional learning foci. We are working on our instructional focus is collaborative structures, really getting the students to communicate with each other, having those very focused, direct, structured conversations that are about the standards and objectives in learning, and really having those structures built into the classroom. That was one of the things that, as I took the teachers on instructional rounds, our very first instructional round, we saw that there was some really good learning, but the students weren't talking and they weren't communicating. And so really putting in those structures so that they have that, those really great conversations, academic conversations. And then our second focus is the student-teacher relationships, really working on that and building those relationships amongst the adults and the peers. And the reason why I say that this is so exciting for us is because the process we took to get to this point. It was very collaborative. The teachers worked together. We read research. We discussed what we wanted to see. We discussed what our outcome wanted to be as a collective group. So together, we brought this focus and we're bringing it to life. And as we work together, we're really working on that collective efficacy with our staff, because it really, as we've had these discussions, it really starts with a strong core, and the strong core is our staff, and then it filters out to our students. The next one I want to talk about, I'm going to go in a different order because the one I really want to talk about is exciting for me. So I'm going to talk about the 6th grade exploratory strand. So I went in and we didn't really have a clear pathway of what we were going to do with our students. As we sat and talked as a team, we talked about that middle school should be more of an exploration. What are we going to do with our kids? How many different things can we engage them in and give them some just some exposure to. So we have a 6th grade strand because we figure that our 6th graders are coming in. They're still kind of lost. They haven't found their place yet. They're still young. They don't know if they should be in elementary or middle school. So we started this strand because we felt it was going to be very effective for them. So during this year, a group of our 6th graders are going to rotate through 4 different electives. They're going to have 9 weeks of STEM, 9 weeks of Cadet Corps, 9 weeks of AVID, and 9 weeks of STEM, Cadet Corps, AVID. No, it's not music. STEM, Cadet Corps, AVID. I'll think about it. It'll come to me. So they're going through those four different strands, and they're going to have that exposure to all of them so that when they get to 7th grade, they're going to say, yes, I want to go into STEM and I want to spend a year in STEM, or I want to go into cadet and I want to be a cadet leader, or I want to go into really engross in AVID and have those tutorials and really go to that college career readiness. Digital broadcasting is the 4th one. And so they'll rotate through that. And so we're very excited to have that exploration for our students, which will raise engagement for our students. The very last thing I want to talk about is what we're starting this year. We are having an advisory class. It's our first period homeroom class, and it's a full period. It's a 47-minute period block. And the focus there is developing leadership and character building within all of our students and integrating the SEL components and our PBIS success skills within that advisory period and really building our students. We have so many students that have such strong leadership abilities and just leadership qualities about them, but they're not focusing those in the right direction. And so our goal is to use a program called Mindset Matters, and it has 6 different modules to it. One of them is courage. It goes into collaboration, communication, leadership, and really developing our students that way. They have a home to go to the very first period. So we see that that's also going to increase attendance because they're going to be excited to go to this period, and they're going to make connections with their teachers and really have that opportunity to develop the whole child. And I think that's what's really important with our students at Del Vallejo, because some of them are coming from such trauma-filled environments, that if they come somewhere and they're there safe for that first period, it's really going to make a huge impact with our students and their well-being. So I'm very excited as we go into this coming year. Our teachers are excited. Our students are excited that they're going to homeroom first period because they have been used to rotating. And I just want to say thank you to all of you on the board and on the cabinet who have supported myself, my staff at Del Vallejo, because we are there for our students. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Ms. Woods, you just finished your first year there, is that correct, last year, or almost a full year?
Almost a full year.
That's right.
Almost a full year.
great.
So yeah, yeah.
All right, Dr. Flores? Okay.
So I just wanted to thank you guys for your time and bring it full circle. So you heard them share a lot about the culture and the climate on their campus and talk a little bit about the attendance and suspension, but really calling out the fact that this is how we get the change that we're looking for. They've got to invest in building their culture, and so you were able to hear some of the evidence of that, as well as matching that with the results that they were getting. So thank you guys for your time this evening.
Yes, Dr. Flores? And then Dr. Hill afterwards.
Thank you for the presentation. It's hopeful, and that's what we are, making hope happen, correct? And it's for our kids. And Dr. Marsden, I really like this, what I call a mediated structure, this matrix that you have. I think we should have this for every middle school and high school. As a board, I would like to see, comparative data of our middle schools and our high schools so that we can see that. And I like that we have the trends, that we can see the trends and they can also see the trends and know. And what Mr. Tillman said about, it's just not the data, but it's what each school site is implementing in terms of changing the culture. And that's what we have to capture, because I know that at each school, you both mentioned, and I'm sure at all our schools, that's what's going on, but we are not aware of it. And so I would really appreciate, like a narrative or aspects about how, they're engaging in.
Sure. We can look in how to do that.
But
along
I
with you.
think this is a really good, I'm a
Thank you.
Vygotskian, and I'm very visual. And so this, I call it a mediated structure, a matrix. This matrix is very powerful. And you can see all the parts in the whole at once. And then you can focus in on the different detail. And it really, shows the growth. And that's what we need to do. Because you do this every day. It's difficult work. And you have to really, when you get depressed, you go back and say, okay, here's the data. That's what I'm doing. So I think that would be great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, there's, before we go to Dr. Hill, there's two options. We could either pause a moment and have public comments, or we could finish before, which is like about 6 more minutes of all the comments. That way we can start public comments at 8 o'clock. We have Dr. Hill, Mr. Tillman, and who else? Okay, so if we can.
Let's just go, yeah.
Okay.
As long as Dr. Hill keeps hers at 20 seconds, would be good.
Okay.
I can't keep mine to 20 seconds. I have my notes, but I only have 9 things some just information, some are questions. One, I know you talked about working with Loma Linda, but I just want to share with you that Dignity Health is also going to work with our schools. So just want you to know that's a resource for you. And then my second one, Be Still, is that at all grade levels or just elementary school? The program that if a student moves, they can still stay at the same school? And you don't have to answer that now, but I'm just concerned about that because I think it makes a difference if they can stay at the same school if they move in a place in the city.
We believe it's at all schools.
At all schools. Okay, great. And what time of day is attendance taken? I know it used to be second period at secondary. Does it have to be second period?
For secondary, it's within the first 10 minutes of each period.
Which one is reported to show that a student is in attendance?
I believe all of them. All of them. And then I believe that it, because the questions I've asked is which one counts, like if they're absent for first and second period, or they counted absent for the day or what, but they have to be absent for all periods in order for it to then, I believe, but maybe.
What's the policy?
So as
Law.
we collect ADA if a student's there even a short amount of time.
Right.
There's other policies that may relate to how many periods, but as far as ADA goes,
Yeah.
even if they're there one period.
Even if they show up one period, it's considered
It's considered.
ADA. Okay, great. Okay, and I know on page 17, the African-American suspension rate much higher. I'm hoping you can provide for us, is that higher at one school over another? If we could just kind of see which schools with the highest suspensions, and if you could bring that back to us, as well as the ethnicity of the school, where the highest suspensions are. I'd appreciate that.
Yes. So
Okay.
we are actually digging into that data, looking at things a lot more specifically, and we'll be happy to bring that information back to you.
Okay, thank you. And then the one thing I want to share, one day at San Andreas, I was standing out front when a kid came on campus, and it was, I think, a middle school kid, and Chief Underwood knew him, and he said to the young man, he said, "How are you doing?" And the young man used a 4-letter word to respond. And Chief Underwood didn't do anything, so I'm looking at him, and when the kid left, I said, "Did you hear what that kid just said to you?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Last week I had to arrest his mother." You know, so sometimes we need to take a look at causes, and for that reason, you know, Chief Underwood said, I probably would have said it to the same person who had arrested my mom. So sometimes we need to take a look at circumstances, and I hope our administrators and teachers will do that. I was concerned because I got a call the weekend from a friend who said that one of our teachers told a young man, if you go in to teach, don't come to San Bernardino because we don't do anything about discipline. In fact, he said on his campus there were 5 weapons, and they didn't do anything about it. He said they suspended 1 kid, but the other 4 who had weapons. So, of course, I've learned to not take things at face value that are here. So, of course, I asked which schools, and they said, well, I think it's up near your house. So I looked at all the elementary schools, including yours, Miss Andy, to find this man's name, and I didn't find him anyplace. So I just hope to our listening audience, when people share those types of things with you, ask other questions like what school and where, and things of that nature. So I'm just concerned that people are giving false information to people who will take it at face value. Appreciate the positive tickets. I think it's a great thing. The home visits, I tell you, if you really want to know what's going on, and I'm so glad you're doing that, Ms. Woods. And then, Ms. Handy, thank you for sharing about visiting other schools, because we don't have to go into Orange County and LA. We have it right here in this district. We just have to understand that if it's there, let's go see it, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I just want to say a great presentation. Thanks for all the information. And with your enthusiasm, and I'm a face watcher and everything, but with your enthusiasm, I know we're going to have a great year. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hill. Mr. Tillman?
I know someone said we assume that we're doing this at all the middle schools, but I don't want to assume. So I guess I'd like to see the data. I mean, if we have sites that are flatlined on the suspension rate of 5 years ago and it hasn't changed, then I think we're at a point now where we're not asking, is there a solution? We know what the solution is. So therefore, I don't know if you can do this in a non-voluntary way, but I really think it's a disservice to students at sites that aren't seeing this success if we know that we have a canned package now and we know what it takes to make the change. So I guess the superintendent, what I'm saying is, at some point, you should present to us where the rest of the middle schools are at, and if they're not moved in this direction, either, I mean, the leadership has to accept they're going to, contact one of the experts that we have in front of us, or they might decide they want to make the change, but we need to put somebody new in there.
No, and and Mr. Tillman, you're highlighting exactly what Cabinet does on a day-to-day basis. We do the deeper dive by schools. We dig in. If the school isn't moving, then we work with leadership. And it all starts, as you heard, it starts and ends with leadership.
No, I understand that. So my point is, if we have sites and we don't see the movement,
right,
then the board needs to know that.
We'd be happy to share that information.
That's what I want to see. Thank you very much, and
All
thank
right,
you for a great presentation.
Thank you for the presentation, and we're going to go ahead and move forward for the public comments. Thank you.
Great job. So the board welcomes our first public comment speaker, and thank you all for your patience tonight. Mr. Trayvon Martin, welcome back.
As Mr. Trayvon Martin is coming up, I just want to mention that the Board of Education is prepared to receive comments from members and the public on any matter which is within its subject matter jurisdiction. When recognized, please step forward, give your name, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Go ahead.
Good evening, President Medina, Vice President Rogers, esteemed board members, Dr. Marsden, and Cabinet. My name is Trayvon Martin. I'm the Public Affairs and Community Engagement Representative for California School Boards Association. I'm here this month with your update from CSBA. First, I would like to take a personal thank you to you all for your funding and your support of the mural at King that the 30 Under 30 did. I wasn't there for the opening speech, but I did make it down there later on to help paint some of the murals, and to see some of the King students out there helping paint the mural as well was just fantastic. So hopefully they're enjoying that. First thing in CSBA world, CSBA would like to thank those who attended the Leadership Institute. We hope that you received valuable information from it. And then I did speak with Vice President Rogers about getting some of the information from the coding program. So I do have the CEO of Black Girls Code and Latinos Girl Code that wants to have a 30-minute conversation. So whenever you're available, please let me know, and I will schedule that with them. Number 2, the annual education conference will be held November 29th through December 1st. I hope you were able to take advantage of the early registration rates, which ended on August 3rd. This year it's being held in San Francisco as well. Number 3, the State Allocation Board. The State Allocation Board proposed an amendment, and if it's accepted, the State Allocation Board will cease accepting applications for new construction and modernization project funding when the bonds have been when the board has received enough funding requests to the amount of the available bond authority. This would change what means to be no more list, and would create, number 1, wouldn't show the need for more state facilities funding. Number 2, secure a local educational agency's place in line when the funds are available. So on July 11th, the State Allocation Board held a stakeholders meeting in Sacramento. They are planning to hold a stakeholders meeting in Southern California. So definitely we'll keep you updated on that. We want as many people to attend. We want to keep the list in place. We don't think it's fair that a district gets kicked out of line when the State Allocation Board has more money. The next update is to Assembly Bill AB 276, Medina's Charter School Transparency Bill. The Charter School Transparency Bill did pass the Education Committee and should be taking further action this week. So we'll bring you update on that at the next board meeting. SB 328, Portofino's Pupil Attendance Late Start Bill. As you know, it did not pass the Senate when it first was introduced. Actually, this morning, the Senate made a motion to reconsider the bill. CSBA's legislative advocates don't believe it has enough votes to pass at this time. As you know, CSBA does not support the bill. It's not because we don't think late start is a good idea. we see that we have locally elected officials who can make that decision right here at the dais, and we don't need the state to make that decision for all the school districts. So we'll continue to track that bill. It should have some further action as well this week, as it's should be heading to appropriations for a vote. Also, CSBA's Legislator Awards, the deadline for nominating the 2018 Legislative Advocate Award for your local legislator has been extended to Thursday, September 6th. So what that would mean as a board, you would nominate somebody. You have to have a board resolution, so I would recommend to the board to agendize it for the next board meeting if you're planning on nominating someone. And then you would need to make a motion and then talk about and discuss the person, and then once it passes, submit that to CSBA, and then we will have your nomination form. Lastly, I know a few meetings ago, Dr. Hill asked about having the agendas put on iPads and things of that nature, so wanted to offer, CSBA offers an agenda online program, and it's specifically tailor-made for K-12 boards. So I have some information on that. They changed the way that they charge the school districts for it. It used to be charged based on ADA. Now it's just a flat rate for all school districts. So I do have a fact sheet on that for the board to consider. And if you need any information after you read the fact sheet, just please send me an email or give CSBA a call, and we'll be happy to talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And by the way, I am using my computer to use the agenda, so it's something that we can definitely try using.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, for your comments.
Thank you.
Board welcomes Mr. Ryan Berryman. Good evening, sir. And your topic is Dad Take Their Child to School Day, September 28th.
Yes.
Thank you. And you can go ahead and pull that out of the stand and hold it up. That way we can hear you.
Yes, that's correct. I also have some copies. I was wondering if I
Oh, great.
could-
Yeah, you can pass them to Dr. Volkmer here. He's our deputy superintendent. He'll share those with the board. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Dear Superintendent Del Marson and distinguishing board members and cabinet, my name is Ryan Berryman. I'm co-founder of San Bernardino Fatherhood. My background, if you don't know, is I have worked with San Bernardino County for over 20 years as a social worker working in Children and Family Services. And working in that population, working in that environment, in that culture, I recognized there was not a lot of services for fathers. You say mothers or say families, a lot of time it seems to be that you're typically looking at moms and children and maybe dads. And I recognize that, so therefore I started a fatherhood program. Since I retired in 2016, since the program's been open, I've been volunteering my time at Emerton School. This is my 3rd year volunteering at Emerton School. When I first started there, I asked, I said, do you have any students that I can just come in and read to? So working under Karen Dunn, the community relations person, she gave me a list of students to read to. So I meet with these students on Tuesdays and Thursdays for about 3 hours, and I'll read to them, individually, sometimes in small groups. And I find out a lot of times they have difficulty reading. And I try to make it fun and rewarding to them. As part of the fatherhood program, what I like to do is read an invite to you. I ask, please join San Bernardino Fatherhood, Emerton Elementary School, Fathers Incorporated, and other schools across the nation for the Million Father March on Friday, September 28th. The Million Father March is an opportunity for dads, uncles, grandfathers, coaches, mentors, faith-based community, men's groups, organizations to show their commitment to the educational lives of their children throughout the school year by escorting their child to school on this day. The schools are encouraged to engage in activities that support the theme, Real Dads Read. Reading is a fundamental skill. A child's ability to read proficiently by 3rd grade is the most significant predictor of his and her school success, high school completion, and future economic stability. Real Dads Read attempts to change the outcomes by engaging families, communities, schools to encourage fathers to read to their children. Reading is also a beneficial way for fathers to spend quality time with their children. By design, the Million Father March is a community-driven event and is not restricted to fathers only. Grandfathers, foster fathers, stepfathers, uncles, cousins, big brothers, significant male caregivers, families, family friends, and other male role models are all encouraged to participate. Additionally, representatives from such entities such as public and private schools, community-based organizations, government agencies, local businesses, faith-based institutions, along with elected officials, are also asked to join and support the march. Last year, San Bernardino Fatherhood and Emerton School participated in this event on October the 27th. For every father and male caregiver who escorted their child to school, each child was given a free children's book. Last year, we had over 28 dads and male caregivers escort their child to school, and over 68 students received a free children's book for their dad to read to them. This year, we're expecting to at least double that participation from last year. Along with this, we have a number of different other events, and we're just asking if the board would and the superintendent would support San Bernardino Fatherhood, Emerton School, and other schools participating in this similar event by providing the information to the school district. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Berryman, and it would certainly be our pleasure and want to do that, and also want to compliment your leadership at Emerton, and thank you for your service. It's a great example for our community to have leaders like you to do that, so thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Board now welcomes A. Majati, topic of the Boys and Girls Club. Welcome, sir. And good evening, and thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Madam President, Board, Superintendent.
Good evening.
I want to come and provide a quick update on a couple of things. One is I want to let you know that.
Yeah, put it on. Put it closer to
We can hear you. It just needs to be right close to your mouth is all.
Right here?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
Perfect.
here we go. Okay. So thank you again for another year of partnership with our summer daycare program. We had 268 children enrolled in our program. We hired 36 adults to work for us for the summertime, and 20 students. 18 of them were all San Bernardino Unified School District students that worked for us. We also had 60-plus young people involved or enrolled in our algebra program. So again, none of this is made possible without the support of this board, and for the third year in a row, we've exceeded expectations, and knock on wood, no children were injured, no serious injuries, no issues at all for like 10 years going now. And so we're very grateful for the relationship and the partnership and keeping kids safe during the summertime. The next thing I want to report out on very quickly is our DTP program. Now, I haven't talked to you about DTP in quite a while, but I'm kind of excited to share with you that since we started the DTP program at Royal Valley High School, 100% of our seniors have graduated. 100% of our seniors are enrolled in college. T-Mobile has come aboard as a sponsor for our DTP program, and this coming week, next week, Friday, we'll be actually driving one of our DTP graduates up to Cal State East Bay to send him off with all the love and support. And so I'm grateful to have the access to the students at Royal Valley. The principal and the staff has always been welcoming. The council has always been very supportive in responding to the needs of the students and inquiries made by me or the parents. Dress the part. Dress the part. The idea, of course, is to furnish the young people after they've demonstrated their commitment to the program. We buy them brand new suits, shirts, ties, belts, shoes, etc. And they wear them to school every other Thursday. And then when they don't wear the suit, they wear the polo shirt that says DTP. And they wear the suits in public when they go out to board meetings or council meetings or usher events at different community-based organizations where they get requested often. And again, T-Mobile has been a tremendous sponsor and supporter of the program as well. This summer they came aboard and they brought shoes for all of the high school students at the Boys and Girls Club. They've held all types of events for our kids in the DTP program. It's been very beneficial to have that partnership. I also want to share with you that, and forgive me, I've got a little bit of stuff going on here. It's our third year with the summer swimming program at San Bernardino High School, the third year. And for the third year, no major injuries. I say no major injuries because you're going to get your scrapes and stuff like that, but no one has been injured seriously, and there's been 0 drownings. And I know that Mr. Haynes, if he's still here, is probably real glad to hear that, because the very first year, as you all recall, it was a lot of concern about opening the pool up to the public, and safety was the #1 concern. And so you'll be happy to know that we, for third year in a row, have had no drownings and no major injuries. We also hired 16 lifeguards. And this year, what's different about the program is that the lifeguards we hired, 14 of them were all students in San Bernardino Unified School District. They're either part of the polo team, swim team, or something of that nature. We actually paid, got them trained and certified as lifeguards, as well as certified with CPR and first aid. And they did a fantastic job for us. So again, very happy about that. Let me also share with you that there are some changes that we're undergoing at the Boys and Girls Club, and I rightfully shouldn't even be able to say Boys and Girls Club right now, because our charter had been revoked by the national organization. I want to be very clear in terms of why and what we're doing in an effort to reestablish that relationship. We received notification on May 25th that our background check policy seemed to be out of compliance with the national organization. We took exception to this, and we still take exception to it, and we are challenging it. When I took over 10 years ago, LexisNexis was the system in which we used, and it did local database stuff, data in, data out. We elected to go with a live scan process that we thought was more comprehensive. The national organization's contention is that we should be doing background checks every year. Our position is that our background policy that we have now is better, and it exceeds national expectations. With the national organization, you get hired on April 25th, you get background, you don't get background again until next April. With our policy, if I hire you on April 25th, if March 12th you get arrested, March 13th we get notified. If we didn't have our policy in place, we'd have to wait until next year to find out about that particular arrest on that particular employee, which is why we made our argument to the national organization that our policy exceeds expectations. And there are 2 recent incidents that I won't go into detail on, one of them quite serious. But if we only utilize national's policy, these individuals would be working with kids now, given that the CAPS program has begun, the school year has begun, as opposed to them being terminated because we got notification the very next day of their arrest and what the charges were. So I need you all to understand that since we began working as a vendor and a partner with the school district, since I have been the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club since 2008, we have never had anyone work for us, volunteer for us, who had not been fully background, live scanned. Our kids have never been in danger. I'll take any questions if you have any. If not, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Mr. Machado.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Flores?
I just want to say that I graduated from Cal State Hayward, which is now called East Bay, which I don't like. But I got my BA at Cal State Hayward, and I'll tell you, it's a great school. It's up on a hill. You can see the Bay Area. It's small. Well, it was small when I was there, but I don't know what the student body is. But I think the young man, is it a young man?
It is.
Yeah, he's going to love it. It's so beautiful.
He's very excited about it.
Yeah.
This was not even on his radar 3 years ago. And
Right.
so again, having that access to be able to go to the
Right.
school anytime and
Right.
the counselor support,
Right.
it made the difference. He
Yeah,
actually believed
it's
and
a
he's
great
actually going.
school. I got my BA, everyone, in 1970. That's a long time ago, yeah.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you for bringing that.
All right, thank you.
Those end our public
I'm
comment.
sorry,
I have a
Mr.
question,
Gallo?
Majority. Was the revocation by the National Association or whatever the national organization,
Yes.
was it solely based on the procedures for live scan and?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the letter we received stated the
Because
charter
that seems to have
revoked.
gone awful far down the road for something that you would think might have been.
No doubt, no doubt. Like any other organization that has to rebuild, which we had to do from 2008 to current, had to restructure, rebuild, new board members in and out, et cetera. You go through growing pains, you have issues, but National is there to help you walk through it. Sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's easy, but we've had our issues over the years, but they've all been rectified and taken care of. The notification we received said, very specifically, charter revocation due to you being in violation of our background policy, which includes the barrier policy.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, and those are all the public comments tonight, Board.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and it's currently 8:20, so we're going to try to move forward. 7.0 reports and comments. 7.1 report by San Bernardino Teachers Association.
Ms. Beta-Sacala mentioned that they have no report tonight.
Okay. 7.2 report by California School Employees Association.
Looks like also no report.
Okay, great. 7.3 report by Communication Workers of America.
Also no report.
Okay. 7.4 report by San Bernardino School Police Officers Association.
I see also no report.
Okay, then we're going to go ahead at 7.5 comments by board members. Okay, then we're going to start with on the side from Mr. Tillman all the way to Dr. Scott White.
I want to start by thanking Superintendent and Ms. Kostakis and staff for the work they've done on the solar projects. I drove past Cesar Chavez, and I just said to myself, this is like a win-win. You decrease the cost for electricity, and you gain covered parking. How could you lose with that? So I talked to Ms. Kostakis, and we are going to look at doing other projects at the sites. I think we should maybe have a goal of being 100% clean energy by a certain year based on what we really think is doable. Or maybe we can do incremental 25%, 50%, because we're blessed to live in an area where we have so much sunlight, and we really should capitalize on it. And I think the technology is there. So I think it's important that the board makes it a priority, and then forces ourselves to set realistic goals, and then I think we'll all benefit from it, because this is a huge benefit just because we push so hard to get it. So thank you for that.
And if that could be added as well.
Yeah,
into
I'd be happy to set that 100% goal.
That would be great. Thank you.
And then I have my Black Future Leaders program coming up. So it's actually orientation is September the 2nd. The program is September 7th through September the 9th. And I don't know who the right person in the district is, but it really benefits us if we can contact the counselors at the high schools. It's for students that have a 3.0 GPA or better going from middle school to high school. And they're getting the program. They stay at Cal State San Bernardino Friday night, Saturday night, and they go home on Sunday. This year, part of the project with the essay will be writing an essay about the Black Panther movie, and then we're going to have a field trip to the museum in Los Angeles where they have the King Tut exhibit. So it'll be a rich program as usual. We cap it at 50. But the great thing about the district, when they partner with us and identify the students with those GPAs, you just have some brilliant kids that may be living in just challenged situations, but they have so much potential. And so I don't know who the right person is to reach out to. You, okay? And I know that usually this week is the busy week for them, but maybe next week they can get us the list and we have the application. We did make the announcement at the award ceremony for the 3.0 students, so they know about it. So if you can get the information to me, it'd be great. And then we will submit a proposal to the district for the students that go to our district. So I'll get that to you also. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gallo?
Yes, thank you. Danny, did I get this straight? You wanted Dale to set a 100% goal on his... He's never wanted 100% of anything. I'm not
this is
kidding.
this is possible.
I'm just teasing. Yeah,
as long as it's possible, right?
That's exactly right.
You just told me we can have one solar
I think
flare.
You should. I think it's great. Yeah, this is you wipe out all of them, right? Right. And all I want to say is just welcome back. Ready for a new school year. I see some excitement on the faces of everybody back there. Would somebody please wake the rest of them? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know everybody's, hopefully you've had a good start to the week. You know, we're pretty positive people that are sitting up here. You know, we have high aspirations and high expectations and for our students, as you do. And we just like to celebrate with you and welcome you back for the new start. If you need anything, you know, I know there's growing pains in starting off the school year. There always is. And we're here to support and help and have a great year and look forward to our students' success. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gallo. Ms. Rogers?
Keep saying it until it
Is it
happens.
Dr. Sis, eventually.
It will, I trust you.
The power of the words, definitely.
Just a couple things, and just to add to what you said, Mike, definitely welcome back to everybody. The district has done a great job putting out a whole lot of social media, and we captured a lot of that and put it on our pages as well. Remind students to be in school, you know, the importance of that and when school started. So I'm really excited about that because, you know, people, am I still in your, I'm sorry. So let me just go on my list because Dr. Wyatt is just fired up over there. I know that, and I'll just say this quickly because I know that Dr. Flores is going to talk a little bit more on this, but I just happened to be at an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was mentioned again about Footsteps to Brilliance, and I guess the process, and I'm not sure exactly what it is or how the campuses need to have access, but just chiming again off of the young lady who came the previous week and spoke so much about the library, and I love libraries. My kids were there every summer and all the time getting their In-N-Out Burger certificates, but we did, you know, invest a lot into that. So everyone needs to understand it. It's right at the tips of the hands of our parents and those that qualify. We just need to let them know. But that was a complaint that came to me, and I told them that I would share that with the district. Also, I would like the district to also look into, as we are continuing to build on our counselors and on the presentation, and I know we're going to be getting more updates, but I did talk to a parent, happened to speak with a parent about her student being in 2 pathways. Now, maybe there's a reason why that would happen, but when I just asked a little bit more questions, I realized that they were not in their college core classes, but they had 2 pathways. So we need to check into that because, of course, we know that we take them off the track of college, which, you know, I believe in having options. So please look at that, and when we get the presentation, maybe we can build upon, after you explore that, maybe, you know, some of our counselors need a little bit more awareness of what we're trying to do with the pathways. Pathways are great, but, you know, we want to make sure that they have the other option as well, the main option. Also, I was going to mention this in the last presentation, but wasn't sure where it fit, and I really wanted them to finish. But it also came to my attention that I guess we have a policy around the 10 absences. Now, I'm not sure if it's a may or shall the student can fail a class. Is it a may or is it a shall? Because it is my understanding that we do have a teacher that automatically fails the student. And so, again, to me, if it's happening one place, it might be happening another, and it could be unintentional.
Unexcused absence or any?
Just 10 absences, and I don't know what the policy reads.
We can look at that.
So we need to look at the policy. I don't think we've looked at it, but that's happening, and so that's another relationship, I'm sure, or correlation to chronic absenteeism. When you already feel that you're out, you know, you can have a problem. But again, I give you this information for us to explore it again and just clarify. Sometimes we have people coming in and they may not know the interpretation of something. So please look into that. Another sad thing, and trust me, I go to work and I'm not looking for these things, but they do trust and come to me, and I think it'll be beneficial to the district. But we have promoted the Promise Agreement at Cal State, and I was saddened to hear, and there's 2 specific students. One student that ended up at the last minute having to go to school out of state because there was some paperwork that to me probably would be simple. But what was even worse is that one of the students was one of our Making Hope Happen students. And I know we're supposed to have mentors with them, right? And so this student and their parent didn't really, I guess, have all the details that was needed. And thankfully, that one student is at Valley College. I'm happy about that because I'm a proud alumni of a Valley College as well. But when we say, you know, there's a promise or something like that, and there's not, this goes back to engagement with the community. They hear promise. Promise means it's going to happen no matter what, even if I'm not clear on my paperwork. So I want us to revisit that. I know Cal State has had some changes in a particular department that kind of oversights that, but I just felt bad for those students because that's two that I know of. We want them, you know, to stay here, but the one situation, I'm so happy that they immediately had to fly out of town to another school that still had the opportunity to enroll within a week period. And that student wanted to stay here. So, you know, I can give you more details on it, but again, it's more about making sure that our parents are aware. We have, a parent could be a teacher, a parent can be a principal. It doesn't mean we know everything. We need to understand and have those supports, and we highly said that we would have those supports there and available for the Making Hope Happen students. And then I attended a conference, and I hope you guys eventually will be able to attend the wellness conference. It's a great conference to attend, but just to mention one thing that they were talking about mental health, a lot of areas around mental health, and I saw an email from the district about a relationship with NAMI or something to that level, but what was good about it is that we talked about that in the desert last week, and a lot of the districts are having stigma-free lunch times for their students, and they said that they're finding a lot of success because the resources are being brought on the campus during that time, and the students are really accessing it. So that may be something that we can look into. And then lastly, part of the presentation also, I thought perhaps when Dr. Hill brought up the correlation on the suspensions, but hopefully you can also add the D's and F's in those correlations, that were they happening at those schools? Is it the same schools with the high suspensions as well as the D's and F's? And that would give us another focus on trying to close the gap on those that are struggling with the D's and F's and getting suspended. I mean, it's very easy people to lose momentum. These are students we're talking about. The first D, the first F, and if you ever got one in your life, I'm sure it wasn't a happy thing. And so our students are the same way. And then lastly, Dr. Marsden, I had someone tell me a couple of days ago that they were part of the Making Hope Happen, Hope Makers, you know, way back when, and they didn't get a T-shirt. So they wanted me to tell you that they want
Make
their
sure you get the
T-shirts.
name to me.
I will get the name to you. All right, thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you. And I just wanted to point out that you did go over 5 minutes, which is good. Yeah. They didn't say time. It's okay. It's like 2 minutes after. We're like, okay, you can take my... It's okay. I'll be brief before I head to the others. I just want to piggyback on what Mr. Tillman mentioned regarding efficiency, especially with energy and so forth. If we can also make sure that we're recycling, and if we can have bins at all of our school sites, here at the board meetings, especially in the back room, so that way we're recycling appropriately the bottles and everything else. Okay. Dr. Hill?
Thank you. I'll be brief as well. I just want to say to Dr. Marsden, Cabinet, thank you so much. I've heard every school that I've talked to, and I'm not sitting home calling schools, but the ones I've talked to, they've been very pleased with their opening day yesterday. And we know it's because of your leadership here, and just want to thank you so much for what you're doing. I also want to thank Ms. Ontiveros and Dr. Volkemer. They are part of the California, this is our first California Clean Air Day, which will be October 3rd. So we'll get flyers out to you. And with the schools, with Ms. Ontiveros, we working on some neat things that's going to make you proud of us. I want to say thanks to all the parents and the students out there. Have a good year. And to make sure you have a good year, don't wait until the end of the semester to check on whether it's a good year or not. It's okay to check weekly. And of course, to our staff, give our students the best that you have to offer. And if you can't give them the best you have offered, I heard Manny Scott say the other day, perhaps you're in the wrong profession. So to all the staff members, we just want to say thank you for all the good things you're doing. And Dr. Marsden, and I understand Ms. Christakis was responsible for Manny Scott coming here. I tell you, I cannot go one day without reliving some of his words and comments. The sad part about that, it wasn't a mandatory event for all staff members, because I tell you, if there's staff members who show up every day just to get a paycheck, I can guarantee you they would not be working for this district today, because his message was so powerful that if you have a conscience at all, and I believe we all do, you would walk away from not giving students your best. So I hope the day comes that we can get Manny Scott to come back and present to all staff members. Absolutely wonderful. I think it's the best speaker I've heard in 40 years. So thank
agree.
you so much for that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hill? I mean, Dr. Flores?
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to welcome everybody back. I know some of the staff members have not left. They've been on board, but I hope you had good vacations and you're very raring to go again. I think we have tremendous teachers and administrators, and like Dr. Hill says, they want to do the greatest job possible. I'm so excited because I also got to take my granddaughter to school, kindergarten, and she loved it. And I asked her what her day was like. She goes, "Do I get to go back there tomorrow?"
Yes.
I said, "Yeah, for the rest of the year." And she's at Belvedere, yeah. So, and she's in a dual language program there. And you know how I taught all the teachers, right? Well, I taught her teacher too, 20 years ago. Can you imagine?
Wow.
So that's amazing. So I'm really happy. So I have a few things. I would, just to follow up on what Mr. Tillman said, I had it on my list too, because I think it's tremendous that we're doing the parking structures with the solar panels and so forth, and I think we should do it throughout our whole district, at every school, at every single school, and plan it, incrementally. I don't know where the money comes from or what it is. I think they invest the money, and then they get their return from us paying the electric bill, right? So it doesn't cost us any money, by the way, board members. It doesn't. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we did not have we have no escalator, so there is a flat rate that was very low that we were paying probably below what we are currently
What we're learning,
paying.
but we don't invest
And
in the
it-
structures they do, right?
Right.
The
correct.
So I think
It's a power
it's
purchase agreement.
Right, it's a win-win. So I think we should do it at every single school. And I also have the idea, because parents have told me there aren't enough shaded areas in elementary schools for lunch. So we should have those structures, the lunch structures at schools, for example, Gomez, Urbita, even Belvedere. They need shaded areas, Vermont, so that, and so if it doesn't cost us anything, we should really entertain, to help our kids so they have, shade to eat their lunches in. And also when it rains, they could be out there. So that was my contribution. Secondly, following up on what Ms. Rogers said, I would like to agendize, Madam President, for next board meeting to bring Dr. Greg Spencer to give us an update on Footsteps to Brilliance and where he thinks, what we've done and where we need to go. And I know that one of our teachers, Talika, forgot Talika's last name. Do you remember? You don't remember, Ms. Rogers? She was a teacher that worked the summer with Footsteps to Brilliance, and the kids did tremendously. They gained so tremendously. So I really want to hear about that. So I would like to agendize that and invite Dr. Spencer to come. Also, I'm glad I spoke to Ms. Christakis about air conditioning, and I didn't hear back from the people that called me, and so I think it was taken care of. So that's good. I have gotten reports of overcrowding in classrooms. I won't mention the high schools, but I'll tell you later, where there's 48 students in a class. That's unacceptable. totally unacceptable. K-1-2 combos, 42 kids in a classroom, that is unacceptable. Dr. Marsden, I know we have the 20-day or whatever, but our kids shouldn't be, and our teachers shouldn't be under that stress. We should, and I know we have extra teachers. What do we call them? Itinerant teachers?
Resident subs.
Resident subs that could be hired, and not the resident subs, no. They're teachers that, what do we call them, Dr. Wiseman? We've hired them, but they're not residents because they have, they're on emergencies, I think. Correct?
Itinerant teachers would
Itinerant,
those would be housed
Right.
kind of at the district, and we deploy them.
Right. And if we have the numbers, then we should hire them, yeah, if the numbers are there. That's what I know you wait, but I don't think we should be waiting. That's 20 days, that's a month. And our kids are losing
Yeah,
out.
And Dr. Forrest, just so you know, we're not waiting.
You're not waiting?
Not at all.
You're acting on it?
Every day.
Every day? Every single day?
As we have the last few years.
Okay, but I'm getting these reports.
Every year.
All right.
Because
Well,
we can't predict where kids are going to show up, so we
Right.
have to respond.
Right.
And that's what we're doing.
Well, I'm getting reports, also middle schools. Anyway.
Thank you.
These are teachers, they call me, they
Sure.
text me,
Great.
and so forth.
let us know, and we'll
Right,
get the team on
right,
it right away.
Right, I think we have to act. And lastly, I'd like to know, I heard Dr. Monadas talk about a wellness community meeting or committee. Have we set up the dates and times where that committee is going to be meeting? Because I got some inquiries from community members, and I didn't know
Dr.
the
Flores,
dates.
are you referring to the wellness symposium that's going to take place in October? And so there's a committee that is preparing all of that?
And is it from the community?
It's a combination, yes. So we
Oh,
have
yeah,
community
they want to
members-
join, is it too late to join or come?
Dr. Perez, is it too late? I don't think so.
So we're happy to take the names and reach out to
Okay,
the community.
I'll give you, there's a couple of names
We
that
have
reached out to me.
ongoing meetings. We
Thank
still
you.
have several of them planned,
Uh-huh.
so we would be happy to have.
Okay.
So we'll get those names from you.
I just got the
Thank you.
request today.
Perfect.
And I didn't know
We'd be happy
if
to
we
reach
had
out.
it. Yeah, okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Give it to you, the name, okay.
All right, thank you, Dr.
Thank you, that's
Flores.
it.
Dr. Wyatt?
Well, I was going to say I was going to keep it short, but why start now? No, I'm just kidding. So for those of you out there being very patient with us, I'll try to keep it short. First of all, I just want to thank Tom Pace and Joe Aceto today for a wonderful visit to our new theater here at Indian Springs High School. Wow, amazing facility. I can't wait for our first event, and I just found out, I guess we're going to be having our board meetings there too, so that's pretty exciting. I was just looking forward to seeing students there, so I get to look forward to seeing these folks now, so just kidding. But no, really, really fantastic facility, and something that Tom was telling me, you know, it's pretty much paid for free and clear, and I think that's pretty amazing when we look at facilities such as that and multi-million-dollar projects that our district, when we look at our finances and how we manage our money, that's pretty impressive. That, you know, we didn't have to go to the city for that or to the public or to the community, but it was sponsored by our developers. So I think that's really important to share with our community, to let them know that such an amazing theater was constructed and paid for by the developers that work with our community. So again, fantastic job. Great reports today. You know, I want to always try to reflect on the previous year as we move forward into our new year, and just some items that come to mind. Graduation rates that have been going up. Obviously suspension rates going down, which is important. Our Safe Routes to Schools program that's getting ready to start up and get fired up, and I know that's been one we've been waiting for quite some time, so really excited about that. Citations tremendously down. I know we've talked about that already earlier, and it goes back to the school to prison pipeline and keeping our kids from going to places like juvenile hall or county jail or prison as they get older. So phenomenal work there, and I know you know, Chief Donahue as well as Chief Polino text me. It's a group effort. It really is. It takes everyone to manage to get those citations down and work with our students, keep them in school, get them in school where they could be successful. Chronic absenteeism, we know that's a huge challenge. It's one of our areas of accountability on our dashboard that we're responsible for. One item that really stuck out to me, and it's an area that I work in, is our continuation schools. And how do we get that percentage of students down? You know, that's something that I think we really need a specific strategy and a plan of intervention and support to address. Because obviously if our chronic absenteeism number is pretty high, part of it could be because our continuation schools are in the 80s. I mean, that's a high percentage when we look at that. So I know our continuation schools have some phenomenal programs, as Mr. Gallo mentioned earlier. So I don't think it's the educational programs or what we offer there, but obviously other circumstances, as we know with our students that they face at home, on the way to school, maybe, you know, what they have to take care of at home, or they're working. So how do we support them? I know I was looking over at Dr. Manada is over here in some sort of blended program we could have in regards to an instructional model to where we could collect that ADA on them. You know, maybe a combination of, you know, traditional comprehensive school with like an independent study model. Because a lot of our kids, and those of you that are familiar with independent study programs, know that it's a different attendance model and how we collect attendance and revenue. And that's something that could possibly benefit our students as well as the district. Because, yeah, it'd be a hybrid program or some sort of blended instruction program that I think we could investigate and look at to really work with that specific population. Because, I mean, when you look at the percentage of chronic absenteeism, that is huge, you know, and we have to do something different there. Because obviously, you know, I've been looking at the number for a few years now, and it hasn't really changed. So what can we do better as a district to better serve our students to meet their needs, as we would always say, because it's obvious that what we're doing is not working there. And so I know we're pretty innovative, and I think we could do a great job on creating something different, maybe even be a model for others to emulate, as we've done on so many other items. So I know, well, Dr. Flores passed me this little note. Kind of goes along with our new performing arts theater, and I did look in our notes, Dr. Flores, on our, she's really passionate, so am I, about our mariachi band. And that actually is in our follow-up items. I noticed on number 6 on educational services, and that's Dr. Mitchell, and I'm sure we'll get some updates on that maybe in a little bit, and that'd be great. And I got 18
seconds. Yes, I have a BC coming to the board for the next board meeting.
That is awesome. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. So we're looking forward to that, and definitely them performing in our new theater right behind us here would be exciting. So that's it for me. Welcome back, students, staff, parents. Looking forward to another dynamic, incredible year, and to build upon the great successes we've already achieved and established, and proud to serve you all.
All right, thank you so much, and we just heard the bell as well. So Dr. Marsden?
Thank you, Madam President. And first, just want to start us off with some student recognitions. This, if you didn't see it, this year's Inland Empire magazine featured the top 25 football recruits from the Inland Empire region. 4 of those students are students right here in San Bernardino City Unified. So congratulations to Jaden Daniels, Darren Jones, Jonathan Perkins, and Cameron Stevens, all from Cajon High School. So have a great season and an even better school year. Excited for all of them. As was mentioned earlier, I too was very excited. I went from Pacuma Elementary School yesterday and then drove over to Lincoln Elementary School and then went to Kendall a little later, and today at San Bernardino High School. And everybody is just off to an absolutely great start. Every parent everywhere very excited for their children. It was a pleasure to see so many folks on the first day. And then Teacher Professional Development Series, as you know, occurred over the summer. Last week with we began last week with 2 full days of professional development for 1,500 elementary and secondary teachers at the Ontario Convention Center with a targeted focus around math instruction. The keynote speaker for the first day was Phil Darrow, who is a writer of the Common Core State Standards in Math. And then the second day was Doug Reeves, who spoke to all of our secondary team. He was very well attended. As you know, he's working with us directly on grading practices. Probably the 2 most powerful speakers in the universe of public education were in front of our folks for those 2 days, and nothing but positive feedback from all. And then, as was said earlier, the employee gathering followed on the 1st. Thank you, board, for those that were able to make that. Manny Scott, as you know, was a Freedom Rider at Long Beach Unified. Movie made out for the Freedom Riders, and his message was very inspiring to all of us to be hope. He actually talked with me just briefly before the event and said that he really felt like this was home for him because he understood that this community is so much like the community he grew up in. And then, board, I have a couple requests of you. I need a couple of you, 3 if you could please, to be on a subcommittee as we look at this topic of programs of excellence. We have some ideas we want to navigate with you in terms of adding additional programs like Richardson or Rodriguez. And so we're getting close to some ideas, and we would like to have your help on that as we begin to prepare a January presentation to the board on that. So do we have a couple volunteers that could help just kind of vet a few ideas? That helps us to be most prepared when we present to the board in January. So we have Dr. Wyatt and Dr. Gallo, Mr. Gallo, and one more. Do I have one more that might be interested? For schools like Richardson or Rodriguez, more about programs of excellence and creating additional opportunities for parents and students.
I could be part of it, but I don't know
Thank you.
if
We'll
Dr.
schedule
Flores,
a
did you
time
want
to
to
get
do
you
it?
to be a part of that.
Yes, we were the ones.
Yep. So that's great. And then what I'll do is maybe have Dr. Flores as an alternate. Thank you, Dr. Flores. And then, thank you. And then, board, my last request of you, if I could ask your attention for just a moment. On Tuesday, I would like to request that we have the final superintendent evaluation meeting for the formal meeting itself with Dr. Yee on Tuesday, October 30th. And then I wanted to ask if you had a time frame that works best for all of us, or most of us, for about, I'm thinking 3 hours should do it. We've finished between 2 and 3 hours, so if we could set that time aside, what time will work for you?
Dale, you don't think October 31st would be more of an appropriate date?
I'll be busy. I'll be in costume. Thanks. Yeah. Could we make that day work? So Miss Medina and Miss Rogers, Mr. Tillman, what time would you like to hold those 3 hours? From when to when?
So I can only after. Let me see here. It would be 5:30 and on, unfortunately.
So starting at 5:30 and it'll go to 8:30? Okay. Okay, so Ward, may we go ahead and schedule that then with Dr. Yee? Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then just a couple more things to mention. One, if you are interested in joining, you know there's this national lip sync challenge going on for police. If you're interested in joining our district school police in this, Tuesday, August 21st at 4:45 p.m., let Ms. Bardier will share a few comments about that for you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Marsden. Our outstanding district police department has requested our video team to produce a lip sync challenge video, and they would like to welcome the Board of Education members to participate. So the idea is at about 4:45, prior to the start of the August 21st meeting, we will shoot an opening scene with our Police Officers Association president, who's going to be the lead lip syncer. And we'll welcome either President Medina or any other board member who would like to take the speaking part of the video, which is in essence just asking for a report from our Police Officers Association, just as you do at virtually every meeting.
Okay,
so
I would
that's the
definitely do.
concept, and we hope you'll be open to participating.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you, Linda. And also to complement Linda's team, this week the district is launching its first Hope News on the district's website with a spotlight on the first day of school at Pacuma and the employee gathering for excellence. So I asked them to play just maybe about 30 seconds of the video. I think it's like a 6-minute video, but just maybe 30 seconds or so the board gets a sense. And you'll be able to view this later on your social media or other website.
Linda Bardier, and welcome to the inaugural edition of Hope News on the Hope News Network. Today is the first day of the 2018-19 school year, and Superintendent Dr. Dale Marsden kicked off the year by visiting.
So there you go. There's just a little teaser, and we'll ask you to pull it up on your social media and watch it later. We're excited about this, and we're excited that we'll start later even getting students involved, and you'll see some great pieces through that. So thank you, Linda, and your team for that work, and thank you, Board. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Dr. Marsden.
Hope News.
Hope News. All right, we're going to go ahead and move to 8.0, consent calendar, 8.1, approval of minutes. You have, no, this is, I'm sorry, did I do the wrong one? The consent. Okay.
I'll move for approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, any discussion? Which ones are we going to pull?
And I need to pull I don't need to pull it, but I need to step out for 8.22. It's a ratification.
So we'll pull 8.22 as well. So.
Yeah, whatever
Okay.
you want to do. Yeah.
Is that it? Okay, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Okay, go ahead. And we're going to go to 8.9.
Yes, I would just like clarification. I thought we passed one last time for Leadership Associates.
Turn that to Mrs. Christakos.
Yes, we have, if you'll notice there, we owe an amount of $1,600 from last year. We asked him to serve an extra day with us at Cabinet Strategic quarterly. And so it's just to be able to pay that invoice from last year.
Just the 1,600? Oh, okay, all right. Oh, I didn't notice the date. I thought it was another one. Okay, thank you. So moved.
Any discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and call for the vote. But before I do, I just want to, I didn't read it. So it's ratification of amendment number 1 to the amendment with Leadership Associates, LLC, La Quinta, California, to provide executive coaching services. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Let's go to 8.19.
I would also like to ask, I know that this is over 5 years, and I'd like to ask if we have a evaluation in place, because this is over $1 million and over 5 years. So, Dr. Marsden, I'd like
Yes.
to know if we have in place evaluation.
Yes, we do for all programs and contracted services now. Correct.
Mhm.
That's
So
what we
I would like to know how this is working.
Okay.
In all of our schools.
Sure, we can get that back to you.
In terms of, because I know it's a good program. I'm not questioning it.
Mhm.
I just like to know the effect that it's having
Sure.
with our kids.
We'd be happy to get
yeah,
that
so,
done.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and that's amendment number 1 to the agreement with
Mhm.
Installation, Dallas, California.
iStation.
iStation.
Yeah.
iStation, Dallas, California, to provide a software license, subscription, and professional development.
So moved.
Texas, yes.
Okay, there was a second. Is there any discussion, further discussion? If not, let me go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Then 8.22, which is a ratification and renewal agreement with Technical Employment Training, Inc., San Bernardino, California, to provide advanced manufacturing STEM pathway to district school sites.
So moved.
Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Let's go to,
We can
if we
bring
can
our
bring-
other members back.
yes, if we can bring the school board members. I also want to start with 9.0 action items, 9.1 personnel report, number 3 dated August 7th, 2018.
As presented.
Okay.
So moved.
Any discussion?
A lengthy one. Is this the personnel
Okay, all those.
report? Aye.
All right, all those.
No, she
all
hasn't
those-
called.
I have to say,
Yeah.
all those, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Okay, 9.2, approval of the college readiness block grant plan 2017-2019. Any discussion? None. I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion carried. 9.3, 45-day revision after adoption of governor's budget fiscal year 2018-19. A motion? So let me go ahead and read it. Be resolved that the Board of Education approves the inclusion and of the revisions in the budgeting and revenues and expenditures in order to meet the 45-day revision requirements to fiscal year 2018-19 per Education Code Section 42127H as presented. And any discussion? Okay, we already have a first and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Let's go to, is it 9.4, amendment to board policy 5117, interdistrict attendance, students second reading. Board, is there any, well, let me go ahead and call for the motion. Okay, and then let me finish the rest. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the amendments of board policy 5117, interdistrict attendance. Let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 9.5, new board policy 5131.2, bullying students, second reading. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the new board policy 5131.2, bullying students, second reading. So let's have a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 9.6, board ongoing initiatives. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. 9.7, top 10. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 9.8, follow-up. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 9.9, future agenda items. Okay, any discussion? Not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed say nay. Motion carried. And then we have 10.0, summary of board requests by Dr. Volkmer.
As presented. So we have quite a long list. We'll go through them as quickly as I can. In terms of presentation on, returning with a presentation on just chronic absenteeism, that would include any correlation between chronic absences and health concerns, as well as disaggregated data by level, elementary school, middle school, high school, as well as gender, and be sure to include raw numbers and percentages. There was a request to have the board recognize schools who have had significant drops in suspension rates. Staff needs to follow up in terms of clarifying if we lose the ADA for in-house suspensions. So we'll get that back to you. There's a request for a 3 to 5 year summary on positive tickets and how we've been doing in that area in terms of increasing the number of positive interactions with students. Prepare a mediated structure matrix for all schools with that a variety of data points. African American suspension rate provided school by school with the actual demographic, including the demographics of that per each particular school. Additional suspension data for all of the middle schools. Explore the expansion of our solar activities as a follow-up. In terms of working with our counselors, make sure that we have what I termed, I hope this is the right term, scheduling awareness. An example being that if a student is in 2 pathways, they might not be able to have their core classes to continue to be A to G and college ready. Double check the 10 absence policy and how it relates to grades or grading. Make sure that we're communicating well and parents have clear awareness of our San Bernardino promise and the details of that partnership. What is the correlation, going back to suspensions, what is the correlation with suspension rates and Ds and Fs? Mrs. Rogers is going to provide the name to Dr. Marsden for a Hope Maker T-shirt for someone. We don't know who that person
She
is.
did.
Yep. He already has it. Checking that one off right now. Thank you. As well as exploring a recycling program that came up as well, in addition to expanding our solar program. Look at lunch structures for shade at our various schools. Dr. Flores requested that we agendize an update on the progress of Footsteps to Brilliance. Yeah, that's what I meant by expansion of solar. Got it. Yep. Thank you. But thank you for that reminder. Dr. Flores is going to provide, oh my goodness, what does that say? Oh, the classes where the overages are. Yeah, specific, that's it, specific about our class overages. Perry, Dr. Wiseman. Investigate the possibility of some type of hybrid program, maybe a combination of regular program and independent study for students experiencing chronic absenteeism. And then the last one that I have is give a report on the eventual progress of the iStation software.
Okay. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to adjourn. It's 11.0 adjournment. Can I have a motion? Okay. Board meeting adjourned. And I do want to mention that it's 9:05 and we have a projected time at 9 o'clock, so we did by 5 minutes go over, but considering the fact that we did have a long discussion with good report, so we did great. Thank you.